Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this kind of content, consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps a lot, and it keeps these long stories going. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What time is it right now where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? And if these stories help you sleep, feel free to tap the thanks button to support the channel. It truly means a lot. All right, let's get into it. I hit the driveway in silence, engine idling low. Emergency lights off so as not to spook whoever, or whatever, might still be inside. Elmwood Drive is deserted at this hour. Street lamps flicker on cracked sidewalks, and the homes loom like sleeping giants. Number 1297 sits back beyond a stretch of overgrown lawn, littered with shattered siding and broken lawn ornaments. The front door hangs half ajar, and I can already smell the cold rot of neglected wood. I grab my mag light from the console, flick it on, and step onto the porch. Each board groans beneath my boots. I call out, "LAPD, this is Officer Reed. If anyone's in there, show yourself." My voice crackles over the intercom. Empty crackle, no reply. I palm my service pistol, fingers brushing the grip no-nonsense tight. Backup is en route, but they're 10 minutes out at least. Standard protocol says wait, but 9 months on patrol taught me that hang-ups with screams reported by neighbors rarely stay quiet. I shove the door the rest of the way open, no resistance. The hinges creak, echoing down a hall painted in peeling pastel floral. My light cuts through dust motes. Every step forward kicks up a haze. The floor is littered with used diapers and rattling cans. At the fork of the hallway, I pause. To my left, the living room. To my right, the stairs. I choose left. Gut says the screams came from down here. The sofa is slumped in the corner, stuffing spilling like innards across the threadbare carpet. Curtains hang tattered, moonlight slashing the room into stark rectangles. Across the far wall, I see fresh footprints in the thick layer of dust, small, bare. I double take, a child's footprint. Heart in my throat, I crouch for a closer look. The toes are splayed, the heel narrow. They lead from the window, across the couch, and vanish under overturned chairs. I snap a photo with my phone. Better than nothing. Who calls 911 about the screams at an abandoned house? A prank? A kid messing around? But then I remember the dispatch note. Caller heard what sounded like child screams, repeated stops. I take a breath. My pulse thumps like a drum. I beacon the radio. Unit 54 to dispatch. I'm inside 1297 Elmwood. Possible juvenile prints. No visual on suspect. Proceeding with caution. Static. Copy, Unit 54. Backup ETA 5 minutes. I murmur. Fives never feel that fast. I backtrack to the hall and head toward the stairs. Dust covers each step. A foot ahead of me creaks ominously. At the top landing, the beam catches a long corridor with 3 doors. The farthest one is cracked just enough to betray light spilling from within. It's a pale saffron glow, but the bulb flickers, as though struggling on borrowed time. I move down the hall, pistol trained, other hand on the wall for balance. The air up here is colder, musty, with hints of mildew. I count 3 doors, left, right, and the one at the end. Whispers echo, a shift in the air, like someone breathing behind a door. My name flashes in my mind, but I dismiss it as nerves. Names don't matter up here, only reports. I tap the door at the end with my gloved knuckle. Wood splinters under the light wrap. LAPD, step away from the door. No answer. I can hear movement inside, light shuffling. I press my ear to the crack, trying not to let anticipation show. A low sob, unmistakably human. Child or adult, I can't tell. My stomach twists. "Talk to me," I say quietly. "I won't hurt you." Behind the door, footsteps retreat. I grip my pistol tighter and kick. The door swings inward. I pivot with the motion. Flashlight illuminating a sparse bedroom. A broken crib, mattress stained, a single blanket ragged in the corner. The light bulb overhead gutters, casting jittery shadows. Then I see it. A small shoe perched on the windowsill. I step toward it, and a cold breeze brushes past my ankle. The window is cracked open, torn screen fluttering. Outside, gnarled branches scrape the glass. I shine the light out, nothing but black. Back inside, I spin around. The crib is empty, no blanket. My radio scrabbles to life, backup nearing. "Unit 54, what's your status?" "Still inside, empty room, crib empty, no sign of anyone." "ETA 2 minutes." 2 feels like 10 when the darkness presses close. I sweep the beam back up to the hallway. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, press against the floorboards behind me. I whirl, gun raised, calling, "Show yourself!" Silence. Then the sob again, closer this time, somewhere to my left. My heart hammers. I take a cautious step toward the left door. I push it open. The hallway behind me collapses into black. The only light now is my torch, carving a narrow path. Inside the room, I can just make out shapes of furniture. Dresser tipped, wardrobe ajar. I step over debris. The sobbing stops abruptly. I freeze. My light falls on a small figure crouched beside the dresser, knees to chest, arms wrapped tight. It doesn't move. I ease forward, voice low. "Hey kid, you okay?" No reply. I crouch, shining the beam on the face. Hollow cheek, tangled hair, eyes wide and unblinking. Dirty, pallid. I swallow. "It's okay." I reach out. The figure flinches, shrieking. I blink, but the dread washes over me. The voice wasn't a child's. It was older, deeper. The figure hisses, jaw unhinges like a door. Teeth too many. I stumble back, heart in my throat, and a surge of adrenaline snaps me upright. I point my pistol. Then the figure vanishes. My beam hits wall-length white plaster. No blood, no stain, no boot prints. Nothing but an imprint, like someone's screaming silhouette pressed flat. My hands shake. This isn't protocol. This isn't law enforcement. This is something else. My radio crackles. Unit 54, backup on site. Police units entering. I exhale, voice steady. "I need you two to cover me. Let's get everyone out. No one stays alone up here." I lower my weapon slightly and move toward the door, determined to clear this floor. But as I step across the threshold, the hallway light flickers once more, and I hear a soft, rasping whisper in my ear. "Officer Reed, you can't leave now." The whisper reverberates in my skull, and I freeze. My boots scrape against splintered wood as I force myself to breathe, recalibrating from adrenaline to focus. Backup is at the foot of the stairs now, their flashlights bobbing in the gloom. I force my legs to move, one step, another, until I'm back in the hallway. The air is thick, almost viscous, like breathing through wool. I signal with my free hand. 2 officers fan out around me, weapons drawn. "Sweep this floor," I order, voice low but firm. The one on my left sweeps his light into the right-hand door. Darkness. He nudges the door open. It creaks like a wounded animal. I kneel at the jamb, peer in. Empty bedroom, the window boarded from the inside, nails bent outward. No footprints. Only dust. We move as a unit now, heels clicking on warped floorboards. The corridor seems to stretch unnaturally long, as if the house is expanding to swallow us. My maglight's beam dances over peeling wallpaper. Once cheery florals, now mottled with mold, then catches in a room mid-hallway on the right. The door's closed, no light leaks. I glance back at dispatch, no transmissions. My radio still sputters like a dying engine. I knock, hard. LAPD, open up. Nothing. Doors push inward with the slightest pressure, no resistance. Inside, the room is small, cramped by a tarnished dresser and a child's rocking chair that sways slowly, back and forth, despite no breeze. I step forward, hearing the whine of the chair's metal spring. The vinyl seat is cracked, shards of plastic on the floor. I prick my fingers on one shard, tiny bead of blood. It spreads like ink. I shine my flashlight into the closet. The door is ajar. Inside, hung neatly on rusted hooks, are dozens of children's coats and jackets. Too many coats for one child, each a different style, different era. 1980s puffy parka, a faded cartoon print windbreaker, a mother's sweater, sweater too big, sleeves torn, the hairs on my neck bristle. I pull one coat free, it's damp, and the lining reeks of rot and something sweet, like decaying apples. A soft thump upstairs. We freeze, thump, thump, close, unmistakable. Not wood settling, something heavy hitting the floor above. I look at my team, their faces pale in each other's flashlights. Stairwell, I whisper. I lead the way, descending hurts, rungs splinter under our weight. I force my foot onto each tread, counting 1, 2, 3, each number ragged in my throat. At the bottom, a door I hadn't noticed before, half-painted gray, with crudely carved symbols in the wood. A circle crossed by a jagged line. It wasn't there earlier. My hand hovers over the doorknob. Ready? The two officers nod. I push. It swings in on rusty hinges. A slanted shaft of darkness yawns inside. The basement, or what I hope is a basement, smells of damp earth and mildew. My heart gallops. We step inside. The floor is uneven concrete, slick with condensation. Against the far wall, I see a coil of extension, cord feeding power to a single, bare bulb that flickers intermittently. Between us and the bulb lies a narrow path of overturned chairs and broken tables, as if someone barricaded themselves in. I sweep my light around. Shelving units line the walls, stacked with dusty jars of something brown and viscous. Sap? Blood? I dare not linger. My radio buzzes faintly, and I realize dispatch may still be transmitting. I hit the call button. Unit 54, dispatch, do you read? A pop, then one word before silence. Go, slowly. The voice isn't dispatch, it's yours. My own voice distorted. I spin. No one else down here but us. The other officers freeze. One points. Their flashlight lands on a figure seated on a chair at the far end. A young boy, maybe 10, knees to chest, rocking slowly. His hair is greasy, plastered to his forehead, cheeks hollow, eyes downcast. He wears a tattered parka identical to one of the coats upstairs. He is real, breathing. "Son, can you hear me?" I call out, taking a cautious step forward. He tilts his head, slow, then looks up. His eyes are black pits. He smiles, lips peeling back to reveal crooked, nothing but teeth. His twig-thin hand lifts, pointing to the cord feeding the bulb above him. I glance up. The bulb wavers, glowing brighter with each breath I take. Then all goes dark. The bulb shatters. Glass rains down. A high-pitched ring splits my head. Someone screams. My name again, but not me. Something else. I whip around. The officers are caught in a tangle of chairs that weren't there a moment ago. They're struggling, muzzle flashes lighting up the room, but no shots fire, just sparks. I raise my weapon, but my hands feel like lead. A whisper circles me. "Why did you come back?" It comes from the walls, from behind my skull, from the boy. I step toward him despite every instinct screaming to run. His breath puffs out in small clouds in the dank air. I extend my hand. I'm here to help. Lightning crackles overhead in my mind, and I swear I feel raindrops on my cheek, though there's no rain outside. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoes above. Feet pounding on the stairs. Backup. Relief floods me. Brief, then curdles into dread when only one pair of boots descends. My partner, Diaz, slogs down with single-file steps, eyes wide in the beam. He's alone. "Cover me," I bark, but his face goes pale. He stops. "They won't let me," he whispers. "Who?" I hiss, stepping between Diaz and the boy. "Us," he says, voice trembling. They said to leave." I whirl back to the boy. He stands now, impossibly tall, limbs stretching too long for a child, ribs visible through skin. The parka hangs like a carcass. He lifts both arms, bones creaking. The basement walls tilt in, water seeping from cracks. The jars on the shelves split, thick brown fluid pooling on the floor. My boots stick in it. Diaz backs into me. "Reed, come on, let's go." His finger hovers over his holster. He looks at me as if I've gone insane. Behind him, the stairs vanish into darkness, no way out. The boy tilts his head, his voice emerges, glistening wet. "You're mine." Diaz screams something unintelligible. I shout his name, but he's pulled backward into the shadows. I fire a round at the boy. No blast, only a click. I drop the magazine, reload instinctively, chamber around. The boy's already floating toward me, no feet on the ground. His arms reach. I stumble back, tripping over a broken table leg, landing hard on one elbow. My flashlight spins, beam sweeping the room in frenetic arcs. I see Diaz on the floor, face pressed into the cord that powers the last lamp above. His form hovers, suspended, as if pulled by unseen hands. I scramble to my feet, heart hammering. The boy is inches from my face, breath cold as the grave. I fire point blank, expecting pain or flames, nothing. He convulses, then folds inward, shrinking until he's a wraith of smoke swirling on the floor. The light overhead flickers out. Darkness. I fumble for my radio. "Diaz! Damn it, Diaz!" No response. I curse under my breath, draw my flashlight, flip it on. I point it at the spot where he stood, just a slick puddle reflecting my beam. I drop to my knees, heart in my throat. My chest heaves. I need to get back upstairs. I need to see him, but the staircase is gone. In its place, a tunnel of ripped drywall leads into pitch black. My radio crackles. Dispatch at last. "Unit 54, what's your status?" The voice is faint, distant. I hold the speaker close. "Call canceled. Evacuate the premises." The words hit me like a punch. Evacuate means leave everyone behind, me, Diaz, even though he's here somewhere. I slam the speaker. Number, I'm not leaving him. I stand, pressing my back against damp concrete, shining my light down the tunnel. It beckons. My skin crawls. Every instinct screams to run. But if Diaz is down there, I can't abandon him. I take a deep breath and step forward into the darkness. The walls close in. I can't see the end. My boots echo on bare studs. I think I feel water at my ankles. A low hum, like electricity, vibrates in the walls. I know I'm walking deeper, not toward the exit, but into the house's heart. And I realize they never send backup for a missing officer. They send someone new. My radio sputters one last time with dispatch. "You shouldn't be here, Officer Reed." Then silence. Ahead, at the tunnel's end, I see a shape, slumped, motionless. I sprint, but as I near, the shape dissolves, replaced by Diaz's parka hanging on a hook embedded in the wall, empty hood drooping. Beneath it, fresh footprints lead away. small and wet. I curl my fingers around the hook, wrench it free. The parka comes with it, damp and heavy. My blood runs cold. I glare into the tunnel behind me. It stretches farther but uphill, light at the top, perhaps. Or perhaps not. I stand there, heart pounding, parka in hand, and wonder, if I keep following the footprints, whose footsteps will fill the hallway behind me? I clutched Diaz's parka in one hand and stepped into the tunnel, letting my flashlight carve a narrow ribbon of light through the choking darkness. The walls were nothing but exposed studs and jagged drywall, the plaster torn away to reveal insulation yellowed with age. Every footstep echoed, reminding me that with each stride I was venturing deeper into this house's bowels, and farther from any chance of escape. The small, wet footprints led away from where Diaz had vanished, vanishing into the pitch-black mouth of the passage. My fingers brushed the coarse wood of the studs as I pressed onward, weapon still raised. Sweat pooled at my temples, mingling with the dampness that clung to my uniform. I focused on the footprints, 3 toes and a narrow heel imprinted in mud that must have been tracked in from outside. I knelt to inspect one, shining the beam directly on it. The print quivered, almost as if it were living, and I recoiled, heart slamming. A low hum began behind me, as though the studs themselves were vibrating, a mechanical pulse echoing in the walls. My radio crackled in my chest. I fumbled for it, thumb trembling over the button. Unit 54 to dispatch, I rasped. Static. Then my own voice came back, warped. Don't. Follow. It sounded tired, as though whoever spoke had been here for years. I dropped the radio, it skidded out of reach into the darkness. I rose on unsteady legs. The tunnel opened into a small chamber barely tall enough to stand. A single, bare bulb dangled from a frayed extension cord, its filament flickering. I moved forward, wary of every loose wire and nail protruding from the walls. Against the far wall was a dresser, its drawers pried open and emptied. The surface held dozens of photographs laid out in a careful grid, mugshots and missing person pictures of children spanning decades, faces desperate, eyes haunted. One image caught my breath. A grainy Polaroid of a 10-year-old boy who looked exactly like my training photo, taken back at the academy orientation. My name tag gleamed on my chest beneath the parka I held. The boy in the photo wore a miniature uniform, too. My mind reeled. I reached to touch the photo, fingertips brushing the cold surface. The bulb flickered faster, then steadied. A voice, small and distant, whispered, "Welcome home." The cord above me buzzed, and the gray sweat of panic soaked my skull. I snagged the parka on my arm and yanked it free, crumpling it in my fist. Footsteps sounded behind me in the tunnel, light, hesitant, then stopped. I spun, gun up, beam slicing through the gloom. Nothing but the tunnel's maw. I backed out of the room, retracing my path along the prints, but the corridor seemed longer now, the ceiling lower. The walls slanted inward, dripping condensation that dripped onto my boots. I slipped, catching myself against a stud. My glove tore, exposing raw flesh to the damp cold. The footprints led on, curling to the right and climbing upward. I followed, muscles quivering, with exhaustion and fear. My chest burned. I gasped for air that tasted of mold. At the top of the slope I found a narrow hatch, a trap door, its latch rusted but somehow recently oiled, the tunnel's end. I strained to lift it, shoulders screaming, until it swung open into a sliver of moonlight. I emerged into what looked like a child's bedroom, but scaled down, unbelievably small. A single bed no larger than a twin, walls painted in pastel blue, a mobile of plastic airplane swirling quietly above the pillow. In the corner sat a dusty rocking horse, its worn mane tangled. The moonlight spilled in through a round window, illuminating motionless shapes that lay strewn across the floor. Coats, hundreds of them, matching the ones I'd seen upstairs. Each one belonged to a child, some frayed, some pristine, all abandoned. The footprints guided me across the floor toward a doorway. Beyond, I heard a slow, deliberate creaking, like the hinge of a heavy door being opened. The children's coats began to sway on hooks driven into the walls. I swung my flashlight wildly. They swung in unison, back and forth, though there was no breeze. I swallowed, trying to steady my racing heart. My thumb brushed the safety on my pistol. It clicked into place. A small voice, childlike yet hollow, came from the doorway. "Officer, read." The syllables dragged, reverberating off the low ceiling. I slammed my flashlight onto the cradle of my weapon and called out, "Show yourself." The coats stopped swinging. The rocking horse froze mid-rock. The moonlight wiped away every shadow in the room. Then a pair of feet, small and bare, stepped out into the light. The rest of the body followed, a child, soaked to the bone, hair plastered to a pale face. His uniform was soaked through, sleeves drooping. He blinked up at me with hollow sockets so dark I felt vertigo. I raised my gun. "Stay where you are," I warned, voice stronger than I felt. He tilted his head, expression blank. "Do you know Diaz?" I asked. No answer. His lips parted. He whispered, "He's here." I clenched my jaw. "Where?" He pointed to the floor. I knelt, sweeping aside the coats. The floorboards had been forced upward. Below was a hatch leading to yet another level. The small voice came again. "You've been here before." My stomach twisted. That made no sense. I stood, backing away, but my boot caught on a coat, sending me sprawling across the dusty floor. Pain shot up my arm as I slammed the parka into my ribs. Above me, the child took a step forward, barely more than a projection of cold. I fired. The report cracked through the silent room, deafening. The bullet tore through something pressboard thin. The coat behind the boy slashed in half. The boy flickered, breaking apart like smoke in a draft. I felt my ears ring. When I opened my eyes, the boy was gone, and the pile of coats lay undisturbed. My flashlight beam drifted upward to the hatch. The chain rattled as it dropped 2 rungs toward the floor. Footsteps banged the ladder from above. I dove for cover behind the bed, heart pounding so hard I thought the floor might crack. The hatch burst open and Diaz tumbled down, eyes unfocused, fog piling around him like mist. I rushed forward, hauling him from the tangle of coats. He was alive. Claws of relief ripped at my chest, but his skin was unnaturally cold, heart fluttering in shallow gasps. I slammed my flashlight into his chest, yelling, "Diaz! Diaz, talk to me!" His eyes flickered. He mumbled, voice cracking, "They called me home." I wrapped an arm under his knees and lifted him. Every instinct screamed to run back the way I'd come, but the hatch slammed shut above me. I pounded on it, voice raw. "Let me out! Let us out!" Only distant dripping answered. Diaz's weight hung heavy. I slid him into the rocking horse. He slumped forward, forehead resting on the saddle. I rested my head against his back, mind numb. I heard the parka rustle beside me. I turned. One of the coats had slid off its hook, pooling at my feet. I froze, remembering why I'd carried Diaz's parka down here, hoping to find him, to save him. Now the coat lay empty. I dropped to my knees, chest tightening as though trapped in a vise. The bulb above me flickered. Then, painted on the back of the trapdoor in childlike scrawl, I saw words carved into the wood. "Welcome back, Officer Reed." The letters dripped with something dark. Ink? Blood? I touched one, black smudge staining my glove. My breath caught in my throat. Diaz stirred beside me, groaning. "Alex, I'm scared." His words were tremulous, fatherless. I clasped his hand. My voice came in a whisper, "I won't leave you." Behind me, coats began to shuffle, filling the room with soft rustling. Dozens of empty sleeves reached for us. I thought I heard distant sirens. Backup, finally, but the sound faded, replaced by the scratching of tiny feet on wood. I squeezed Diaz's hand harder. "We'll find a way out," I lied, because I wasn't sure if I believed it. The bulb snapped off, plunging us into absolute blackness. In the hush, a chorus of soft laughter rose, ebbing around us like a wave. I swallowed the lump in my throat, guiding Diaz to his feet. My gun's light flickered on, pointing into the void. I inhaled, blood pounding. "Follow me," I said, more to myself than to him. Then I stepped forward into the coats, into the heart of the storm. I passed beneath the scrawled message, leaving that door behind. The tunnel beyond seemed to hum with life, shifting, beckoning. With each step, the laughter grew louder, the coats parting like a sea of arms. And I realized every one of those coats belonged to someone who never left. I tightened my grip on Diaz and whispered, "Keep moving." My own voice sounded distant, strangled. At that moment, I knew I was not leading him to safety. We were descending deeper into whatever this place was, into its gallery of lost souls. And somewhere in the darkness, a new print, small and damp, smashed into the soil beside mine, as though another pair of feet had just joined the hunt. I pressed forward through the shifting ranks of empty coats, each sleeve brushing my arms like cold fingers. Diaz's weight was heavy in my arms, his face pale and slack against my shoulder. I could hear his breath, shallow, rasping like wind across dead leaves. Behind me, the coats swirled to close the tunnel entrance, the edges of the doorway grinding shut like the jaws of some unseen beast. The single bulb overhead guttered, then flared, illuminating a narrow corridor lined on both sides with hooks, each bearing more abandoned children's coats. The air smelled of mildew and something cloying sweet, like rotting apples mixed with copper. Every inhalation made my lungs ache. My boots crunched on broken plaster as I sidestepped a bright red parka dangling at ankle height. My fingers closed on the parka's hook and I yanked it free. Another child's jacket, crumpled and wet. The sleeves twitched as though alive, then settled. A low murmur filled the corridor. At first, I thought it was the hum of the faulty bulb, but it grew into distinct whispers calling our names. Reed, Diaz, Alex, Danny. The names faded into each other, sounding older and younger in turns. I squeezed Diaz's hand. "Stay with me," I murmured. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vaulted chamber. The walls here were lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors, each frame ornate but rusted, glass cracked in spiderweb patterns. My reflection stared back, flickering in every shard. A man in uniform, clutching a fellow officer like a prisoner. Behind him, another reflection, smaller, younger, clung to my leg. I spun the flashlight beam, yanked Diaz back as the young silhouette darted out of sight. My heart slammed. How many of me were in those mirrors? How many of Diaz? The whispers pressed closer, echoing inside the mirrored walls. "Why did you leave us? Why did you leave me?" The voice was the child's, pleading and accusing. I could taste bile. Reflections blurred as if the glass itself wept condensation. I realized with a jolt that the mirrors weren't glass at all, but thin layers of water pooled within their frames. Each distortion seeped downward, dripping onto the floor in rivulets. The reflections wavered, then reformed into images from my past. Training day smiles, my first arrest, the night I shot that kid in East LA. Each memory played on loop across dozens of surfaces, my own face twisting with guilt. A sudden crash behind us made me whirl. Diaz had slipped from my grasp, chest heaving. He grabbed my leg, voice cracking. "I can't breathe." I knelt, checking him. No visible injury, but his eyes were glassy, distant. He pointed to the mirrors. As I watched, one reflection dissolved, and where it once was, a pale hand reached outward, fingertips pressed to the glass. The other hands followed. Now every mirror bore a handprint, bloody, smudged, tracing perfect imprints on the frames. My pulse pounded so loud I was sure it would burst through my chest. I hauled Diaz upright. "We have to move," I whispered urgently. He nodded, leaning on me. We edged around the chamber, flashlights dancing along cracked walls. At the far end was a narrow door, its surface warped by moisture, the knob missing. I pushed. It groaned. Beyond lay a spiral staircase ascending into darkness. The steps were slick with damp, edges worn by countless footsteps. The whispers followed us up, bouncing overhead. I counted each step, 1, 2, 3, until the corridor opened onto a balcony overlooking the foyer. Below, the main hall lay in ruin, peeling wallpaper, tattered drapes hanging from broken rods, the grand chandelier smashed into a pile of tangled glass. Doorways gaped like wounds in the walls. From somewhere deep within, I heard a child's laughter, sharp, manic. Diaz gasped and took a step back, leg catching on the railing. I steadied him, voice tight. "We're almost out." We moved down the balcony railing, stepping onto an upper landing that overlooked the entryway. To our right, a pair of double doors, ornate oak, heavy, and carved with the same jagged symbol I'd seen earlier. The symbol seemed to writhe in the dim light, as though alive. I pressed a hand to the banister, knuckles whitening. Diaz leaned on me, trembling. "I can't feel my legs," he whispered. "It's taking me." I clenched my teeth. Whatever this house was, it was feeding on us. I forced open the double doors. They swung inward silently, revealing a room furnished like a child's playroom. Shelves of dusty dolls, board games strewn across a chipped table, a chalkboard scrawled with names, dozens of names, all crossed out except one, Alex Reed. Beneath it, a new name was half-etched in Officer Diaz. My blood ran cold. I stepped forward, the room spilling chocolate-brown floorboards and a single open window at the far side. Moonlight spilled in. Outside, wrought iron bars sealed the window frame. No exit. "Diaz," I said, voice shaking. I grabbed his arm and pulled him closer. The dolls' heads turned. Each plastic face rotated to follow us. Their glassy eyes blinked in unison. A low giggle trilled out from beneath the table. I swung my flashlight there, a small door cut into the wall, barely visible. The giggling grew frantic. I turned the knob. It clicked. I yanked the door open, revealing a crawl space caked in dust. The footprints began again, leading inside. Diaz whimpered, collapsing against the wall. I crouched, shining the beam into the crawl space. It glowed weakly, just enough to see that it led downward, deeper than any tunnel before. My chest tightened, but I reached for Diaz's hand. He squeezed it with surprising strength. "I'll get you out," I vowed. "Just come with me." He nodded, lips trembling. I lifted him. He was limp, but he clung like a child. We crawled into the cramped space, crawling on elbows, the earth clinging to my uniform. The passage narrowed. I could feel every jagged rock against my knees. Behind me, the door slowly creaked shut. My light illuminated patches of writing scrawled on the dirt walls. "I'm sorry, Mom," he screamed. "They took me. Stay with me." The words overlapped in frantic, childlike writing. A cold gust blew through the tunnel. extinguishing the crawlspace light at once. I fumbled for my flashlight, gasping as the darkness swallowed us. The whispers ceased, replaced by the pounding of my own heartbeat. Then, from the blackness ahead, I heard a voice childlike but knowing. "You can go home now." I swallowed, voice cracking. "Diaz, we're almost there." He shifted, head lolling against my shoulder. I felt tears in my eyes when I realized I wasn't sure if home meant outside this house or inside it, wherever this thing lived. I pressed onward, claustrophobia rising, until my hand brushed something smooth and metallic. A latch. I flipped it. The passage ended in a heavy metal door, unmarked, out of place. I heaved it open and tumbled into blinding light. I shielded my eyes. The shriek of the wind was unlike anything I'd heard outside. I staggered forward, and Diaz fell to his knees, gasping for air. I dragged him onto a flat expanse of cracked concrete. When I finally looked up, the world had changed. The sky was a bruised violet with no moon. The house sat on a cliff's edge overlooking an endless chasm of fog. No town, no lights, just the abyss yawning beneath. I stood, chest heaving, footsteps echoing on the platform. Diaz lay crumpled at my feet, unconscious. My radio was silent, screen cracked. I pounded it until the speaker fell off. No signal, my own voice echoed in the wind. "Dispatch." Nothing but static. I turned back to the house. The barred window glowed like an eye, staring. The front porch light blinked on, then off. The double doors at the entry swung open and closed, welcoming and warning in equal measure. I dropped to my knees beside Diaz, checking for a pulse, rounded and ragged, alive. Relief flashed through me, then fear. Where were we? Why had the exit led here? The abyss below felt alive, swirling with voices calling my name. I zipped up Diaz's parka, covering him. I stood and faced the house one last time. The wind roared around me. Somewhere, a child's laughter bubbled up from the fog. I raised my voice. "Is anyone there? Help us." Only silence answered. I glanced at Diaz, silent and vulnerable, then back toward the chasm. Standing on the precipice, I wondered, was there anywhere left to go? And as I took a trembling step toward the abyss, the house behind me seemed to exhale, its windows dark and watching. What choice do I have but to keep walking? Where does this night end? Inside the waiting arms of the unknown, or in the endless fall of what lies beyond? I knelt beside Diaz on the cracked concrete, pressing my palm against his shoulder to rouse him. His eyes flickered open, sluggishly. He looked up at me, confusion and fear warring behind his gaze. "Alex?" he rasped, voice brittle. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "You're safe, I think," I lied, cradling his head against my chest as the wind whipped around us, billowing his parka. We were standing on a narrow ledge at the cliff's brink. Below us, the fog churned like boiling water, and I felt its pull in my bones. Behind us, the house's silhouette stood jagged against the bruised sky, windows like empty eye sockets. No path back, no one coming for us. I hauled Diaz to his feet, supporting him under one arm. "Lean on me," I instructed softly. He did, slumping but steady. We turned away from the house, toward the abyss. My lungs burned with each step, adrenaline and exhaustion warred for control. I tried to remember where that metal door had come from, how we emerged onto this ledge. It didn't make sense, but the latch's cold weight still tasted on my fingers. We walked along the narrow ledge, coats swaying on the racks above us, clattering in the wind. There was no handrail, just the drop into the void. I kept my flashlight trained on the wall beside us. Rough stone, carved with symbols echoing the jagged mark we'd seen before. They pulsed when I looked at them, as though alive. Every so often the beam would catch movement, a shadow crossing the fog, a child's silhouette perched on the railing, disappearing when I blinked. Diaz coughed, clutching his chest. "It's making me remember things," he gasped. I frowned, scanning his face. He pressed 2 fingers to his temple. All those calls, the kids we couldn't save, their voices. He fell silent, eyes glazing over. I realized with a sick twist that the house wasn't just feeding on us. It was dredging up every memory, every failure. A sudden gust tore at us. I half expected the coats to come alive and snatch us off the ledge. Instead, the wind carried a single voice. Laughter, small and high-pitched, like a child's delight. It echoed off the stone, bouncing in impossible directions. I swung the flashlight beam up, and there, perched on a narrow ledge 50 feet above, sat the boy in the dripping parka. His feet swung over the edge. "Officer Reed," he called, voice distant. "You forgot me." I raised my gun, but it felt hollow in my hand. "Stay away from him," I warned Diaz, but Diaz had already turned, drawn by that voice. He lurched forward, nearly stepping off the precipice. I lunged, grabbing his arm, pulling him back. His weight tumbled us both to our knees. The beam of the flashlight bounced crazily, illuminating faces in the fog. Faces of children, identical to the boys, pressing against the fog like they were trying to climb out. I shoved Diaz behind me and stood, pistol aimed at the ledge. "Come down," I shouted. "Come down here and face me." The boy didn't move. Instead, the voices multiplied, hundreds of children calling our names, some begging, some accusing. The fog thickened, swirling at my feet. My heart thudded so loud I was certain it would betray me. Behind me, a doorway, cut into the stone, appeared, arched and foreboding, light seeping through. I charged toward it, dragging Diaz with me. We fell through the threshold into a narrow corridor lit by dozens of naked bulbs hanging from twisted cords. The walls oozed black ichor. Footprints, tiny, wet, plunged away in both directions. I shone the light down the left passage and saw a room full of filing cabinets. Each drawer was open, spilling paperwork. Incident reports, missing child forms, debriefs we'd filed. Our own names scrawled in the margins, circled in red. Diaz lurched forward, rifling through a drawer. "It's all here," he whispered. "Every kid we couldn't find, every call I fumbled." He vomited onto the floor. I swallowed bile. This was beyond terror. It was judgment. I hauled him away, turning down the right corridor. It curved downward, staircase-like, culminating in a low doorway. We stooped through into a long chamber with a tiled floor, half submerged in waist-high water that rippled around us. The ceiling dripped, plinks of water echoing. Ahead, a glass wall, streaked with condensation, showed an endless line of cells. In each cell stood a child, gray and silent, heads bowed. At the far end, the boy in my parka stood in a larger cell, arms outstretched. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was bone-chilling cold. The kids didn't look up. The boy did, empty sockets meeting mine. His lips parted and the water around us sloshed back. I felt as if every fiber of this chamber existed to punish me. Diaz stumbled past me, gasping. "We have to go back," he said, eyes wild. "We have to face them." I grabbed his arm. "We go out the way we came." But behind us, the corridor had vanished. Dry stone wall. I spun, every direction blocked. The water rose to my waist. I slapped at it, water rippling with every heartbeat. The boy's cell door clicked open. He stepped out, boots silent on the tiled floor. Each step sent ripples like a shock. The other children stayed put, their bodies rigid. He approached us. and as he did, the water began to brim over, seeping under the door behind us. He stopped 2 feet away. I aimed the gun, finger on the trigger. My hands shook so hard I couldn't line up the sight. He raised a hand, palm out. I heard the whisper in my mind. "It wasn't your fault." The words struck me like a blow. My jaw slackened, my grip loosened. The boy's eyes glistened, something like forgiveness? I couldn't tell. Behind him, the other children's heads lifted slowly, turning to me. Their faces were solemn, expectant. The water lapped at my chest. Diaz gurgled, pressing one hand to his throat. "Alex," he croaked. "It's time." Time for what? I barely registered the question before the boy tilted his head. The water around us burst into motion, swirling in a vortex that sucked at our boots. I braced against Diaz, half to hold him, half to keep from being pulled under. The boy smiled, sadly, kindly, and whispered, "Come home." Behind him, through the glass wall, I saw the house's porch light blinking in the fog, calling me back. The abyss beyond the cliff yawned, offering the final descent. I glanced at Diaz, his eyes half closed. I knew I couldn't save him here, not from this, not from me. I holstered my gun, knelt, and pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. His breathing stilled. I closed his eyes. He was gone. The boy in the parka reached out, his little hand passing through mine like smoke. The vortex accelerated, dragging me forward. Faces of the lost children pressed against the glass, lips moving in silent chants. I stood, water swirling at my knees. I inhaled one final breath. The boy beckoned me to step forward through the partitioned cells. I took one step, and then another. I crossed the boundary between guilt and absolution, between haunted past and endless present, into the house's waiting maw. Behind me, the water stilled, reflective as a mirror. Ahead, the boy turned and walked away, fading into the fog. I called after him, voice echoing in empty halls. "Why are you doing this?" Silence answered, broken only by the drip of water and the faint, distant laughter of children. I stepped forward again. Is this my punishment or my rescue? Or will I, too, soon learn what it means to come home? I slid out of my cruiser before I even killed the engine. The air was thick with dampness, and the faint stench of decaying leaves, like something in the underbrush had given up the ghost last fall and never moved on. My flashlight's beam cut a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating the peeling white siding of the house ahead. It stood 3 stories tall, its upper windows boarded haphazardly, one board hanging at a crooked angle that groaned softly in the breeze. The call had come 20 minutes ago. Neighbors reporting cries of a child, then a scream so sharp it cleaved the night. Now I stood on the gravel drive, badge clipped to my chest, radio clipped to my shoulder, breathing in shallow, controlled bursts. I glanced at my watch, 2:17. February nights in South Jersey could freeze your lungs from the inside out. I tugged my fleece collar up, slid my hand to my holster, and stepped forward. Gravel crunched underfoot as I approached the front porch, which dipped under its own weight, as if the house were bowing away from me. My radio crackled. "Unit 42, I answered, voice steady. "On scene at 118 Whitaker Lane. No visual sign of occupants. ETA backup?" Static. No response. Standard. I clicked off, knowing backup was still miles away. My flashlight beam landed on a smashed window to my left. One jagged pane still clung to the frame, and through it I could see stale canisters of paint, overturned folding chairs, and what looked like dozens of empty soda bottles scattered across a dusty tile floor. A thin layer of frost coated the bottles, making them shimmer in the beam like ghosts. I raised my voice, careful not to shout. If there's someone inside who needs help, show me your hands. I'm here to help. Silence. My own breath sounded loud in my ears. The front door lay ajar by a few inches. I shoved it the rest of the way and it creaked like an old picket fence gate dragged in mud. Inside, the gloom was absolute, broken only by the beam of my light. A central hallway stretched ahead, flanked by rooms on either side. To the right, a collapsed staircase led to the upper floors. To the left, a doorway opened into what might once have been a living room, now filled with debris and a sofa, whose springs clawed upward as though grasping at ghosts. I advanced slowly, flashlight in my left hand, other hand hovering near my holster. Every step kicked up dust motes that drifted in the beam like motes of ash. I scanned for movement, for any sign of life. In the far corner of the living room sat an overturned coffee table. Its legs snapped. Beneath it lay a single black boot, small, child-sized, its laces undone. I crouched and nudged it with my flashlight. The sole was worn thin, the leather cracked. I called into my mic. Unit 42 found possible juvenile artifact, a shoe, just inside front room. Requesting immediate medics and K9. I froze. In the beam's edge, something twitched. I spun toward the sound. Heart pounding, I swept my light across the floor. Nothing. The shoe lay where it had been. Beyond it, the door to the kitchen gaped open. That's where the kids' cries had been reported. When I stepped toward the kitchen, the floorboards groaned. A faint drip, drip, drip echoed from the sink area. The smell hit me then, rancid water mixed with something coppery. Blood. My stomach clenched. I fought the urge to retch, focusing on the task. Inside the kitchen, moonlight streamed through another broken window, casting pale stripes across the counters. On the counter sat a teddy bear, stuffing coming out of its arm, one glass eye missing. Next to it, a smear of dark red spattered the linoleum. I lifted the bear by its torn arm. Inside the stuffing, I felt something hard and brittle. A tiny finger bone, cleanly snapped at the knuckle. The bear's ear brushed my glove with a soft thud. I swallowed hard, clipped a glove dispenser to my belt, and bagged the bone fragment. I knew I had to keep moving before panic set in. I backed out of the kitchen and headed for the staircase. At the bottom step, the boards had splintered away, leaving a jagged gap I forced myself to ignore as I climbed. 2 flights up, the hallway stretched in semi-darkness. Doors stood open to empty rooms. Beds stripped of sheets, mattresses slashed, walls scrawled with messages half obscured by mold. Go away. She wants you. Don't trust them. The words scratched into the wood felt fresh, the tips of letters glistening faintly. My breathing hitched. I tapped the light against the wall, but saw nothing alive. Halfway down the hall, my foot caught something soft. I looked down. Another sneaker, its partner lost. It was caked in mud and dust, but the sole bore faint, scuffed tread marks. I shone my light along the hallway floor and saw them. Footprints in the dust, small, rapid, leading toward the attic door at the far end. I crouched, chest tight, and followed them with my light until they ended at the door frame. The attic hatch lay open a crack, and from above came the faintest creak, like the hinge was shifting. I called up, voice calm. This is Officer Morgan. I have reports a child may be here. Come out, please. You're safe. Silence. I edged closer, every hair on my arms prickling. The door to the attic was old pine, warped and cracked. I slapped my flashlight against it, and the echo rang like a bell. Another creak, heavier this time, as if someone was stepping onto the first attic plank. My heart thundered, and I pressed my palm against the door, bracing for confrontation. A single, panicked whisper ricocheted down. "Help me." It sounded female, young, terrified. I drew a deep breath, hand on my holster, and pushed the door all the way open. Nothing. The attic was a shallow crawl space, low ceiling, raw beams overhead. Boxes lay strewn, old trunks half open, revealing decades of dust-covered belongings. My light swept over them, searching. I heard another whisper, "Please," from behind me. I spun, expecting to see a figure materialize in the doorway. Instead, the space was empty. The whisper faded into the dark. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and for a heartbeat everything went black. The beam returned, illuminating the far corner, where a child's doll sat upright, its face charred, one eye intact, the other a hollow socket. It stared at me. My pulse pounded so loud I swore the doll could hear it. I backed toward the attic door, swept my light over the plank floor, then froze. Fresh footprints, adult-sized, heavy, mixed with smaller ones, led off into darkness above me, disappearing into a ragged hole in the roof. Moonlight bled through jagged shingles. The temperature dropped, my breath coiling in front of me. A guttural groan thrummed through the wood above, and I heard splintering, like the roof itself wanted to give way. I fumbled for my radio. "Unit 42, request immediate backup. Possible suspect in attic. I'm starting exfil now." My voice cracked. I spun to leave and caught movement. At the hatch's threshold, a slender arm dropped from above, fingertips brushing the edge. I yanked my gun, aimed up, and called, "Show yourself." The arm vanished as quickly as it appeared. I didn't hesitate. I vaulted down, slammed the hatch shut, wedged my shoulder against it, and hit emergency on my mic. The roar of my cruiser's siren cut through the night as I sprinted outside. I glanced back at the dark silhouette of the house. In one of the upstairs windows, a single beam of my flashlight still reflected briefly off cracked glass, there was something. A figure, small, stooped, watching, then gone. I hauled myself into the cruiser, locked the doors, and watched the house in my rear view. No kid, no suspect, just the broken boards and the whisper of wind through empty rooms. But I knew something was still in there, something that didn't want to let me go. The backup light slammed on like a jolt of electricity. Headlights splashed across the rotting porch and through shattered windows, painting the hallway in harsh fluorescent strips. I killed my engine and yanked open the driver's door, boots crunching on gravel as I stepped toward the front steps. Two cruisers idled behind me, Unit 37 driven by Officer Diaz and Unit 89 with Officers Patel and Kim. Behind them, the K9 unit's SUV glowed amber. "Morgan," Diaz called as I reached the porch. "What have you got?" He shone a mag light across the broken threshold. Patel's flashlight bobbed behind him. Kim holstered her Glock with cautious respect. I pointed back at the living room. Child's sneaker, blood-soaked teddy bone fragment, footprints leading upstairs. I got a whisper up in the attic, like a little girl calling for help. My voice was low, but firm, calibrated, so each officer could hear clearly. Patel placed a gloved hand on his chest. "Copy that. Let's move in teams. Diaz, Kim, cover the first floor. Morgan, Patel, you hit the basement hatch, K9 up top." He nodded toward the stairs. Kim took the lead through the living room, sweeping her light across overturned furniture. "I'm clear," she muttered, then paused at the kitchen doorway. "Jesus." She stepped back, face pale. On the counter lay that torn teddy bear and the dark smear of blood we all knew too well. Patel crouched beside her and bagged the bear, with delicate care, like it was evidence and solace both. He wiped sweat from his brow. This house was no stranger to trauma. Diaz shouted something into his radio, and we heard the K9 team arriving on the second floor. Rapid footsteps, the low whine of a Belgian Malinois eager to work. I nodded at Patel and moved toward the floor hatch we'd spotted in the foyer earlier, half hidden under a threadbare rug. I whispered, "Cover me," then knelt, tracing the warped wood edges. With a quick pry of my baton, the hatch gave way with a loud snap. A fetid breeze rose up, carrying damp mold and something coppery. Perfect patrol scent, like stale blood mixed with decades of rot. Patel leaned over, hand on his flashlight. "Basement looks shallow. Ready?" I checked my mag, thumb flicking over the remaining rounds. "Let's go." We dropped one at a time into the dark pit. My U.S. deputy logo caught a faint beam from Patel's torch. The stairs creaked under our weight, each step threatening collapse. At the bottom, we hit dirt floor, packed earth, damp and cold. I swept my light left to right. Old crates, broken chairs, a makeshift bed of mildewed blankets. The walls were cinder block lined with peeling insulation. And then I saw it. Childish scribbles scrawled high on the wall in black ash. "I'm sorry. Why won't you come back? We're afraid." Patel exhaled sharply. "These look fresh." He snapped photos with his phone. A low growl from the corner made us both spin. The K9, Zeus, was already there, muzzle nuzzling at a corner where dust had disturbed into swirling patterns. No footprints led away, only the tracks we'd made descending, and yet the dog's hackles were high. Zeus barked once, sharp and accusing. I swept the beam to the far wall and saw a wooden door, iron hasp rusted shut, padlock missing. I twisted the handle. It gave way with a deep groan. Beyond it was another chamber, smaller, no ceiling, just the earth's underside. In its center lay a circle of scattered toys, a music box missing its crank, a half-dissolved rubber duck, several marbles coated in crusted grime. In the middle, a single porcelain doll stood upright, its dress tattered but clean, eyes unblemished and glassy. "Holy." Patel knelt, circling it. I shone the light around. Something in the walls caught it. A framed photograph, face down. I flipped it over. A family portrait. Mom, Dad, 2 children, a boy and a girl, in front of this very farmhouse. The date scrawled on the back, July 12th, 1992. The faces were smiling, oblivious. And then someone had scribbled over the daughter's face with a sharp pencil, the name Emily crossed out in angry strokes. I swallowed. "Databank. Run that picture. See if this family matches any cold cases." Patel pulled out his radio. "Dispatch. Need immediate hit on a 1992 missing family from Maple Hollow Road farmhouse. Over." He paused, frowning. "No hits. That house, no one on record." I pressed my palm to the wall, staring at that crossed-out face. A child's sorrow had seeped into every crack. I slid back, heart racing, and heard footsteps above. Soft, deliberate creaks on the basement hatch. I clicked my radio, voice clipped. "Unit 42, someone's above us, possibly armed. I'm out." I and Patel sprang up the stairs, knocking the hatch closed and wedging it with a piece of block. Kim and Diaz were already on the porch, scanning the windows. Kim held up a hand. "Clear first floor, no one here." Her breath was ragged. I checked every corner. Diaz met my eyes. "You good?" I nodded, shoving my gloved fist into my palm. "We need a plan. This house is off the charts." He palmed his holster. We split again. Patel and Kim recheck basement, I go cover the living room, and Morgan, you hit upstairs. I tightened my jaw. "We go together, no one goes solo." He frowned but nodded. We moved as a single unit back inside. The kitchen lingered in my mind, the dark smear, the teddy with the finger bone, Patrol instinct told me something worse was waiting up or down. We climbed the stairs slowly this time, flashlights dancing across the scrawled warnings. She wants us. Don't follow her. At the top, the hallway was just as I'd left it. Doors yawning like silent mouths. The footprints and dust were gone, replaced by thin lines of dried mud tracing from one door to the next. I followed the mud to the attic hatch. Patel kicked it open with more force than needed. It splintered under his boot. The attic lay silent and still, the doll still in its corner by the broken roof. But now, more debris had shifted. Boxes that were closed before now lay open, their contents spilled. A pile of children's drawings, pinned haphazardly to a splintered board. Sketches of a smiling girl playing in fields, and then one of the same girl, mouth a gaping hole, arms torn from her body, standing before the house. I wanted to throw up. Patel snapped images. The K9 nosed through the wreckage, wary. We noticed a loose floorboard at the far end. When we pried it, beneath was a crawlspace tunnel dug into earth, mud caked on its edges. It was narrow. Only the dog could fit. Zeus barked and slithered in. Seconds later, a whine echoed back. Patel grabbed the radio. K9 handler, Zeus is in the tunnel. Possible sustainment of scent. He keyed up. Need tactical support to breach secondary chamber. I peeled off my glove, hand slick with sweat. This is escalating. We're beyond a simple search and rescue. This could be a long-term hideout. From below came a distant thump, like a door slamming underground. The house vibrated ever so slightly, as if exhaling. I slammed a fist on the attic beam. "Dispatch," I said, voice hard. "Get HRT here." High-risk team, SWAT, whatever we needed. This is not a standard missing child call. Below me, through the attic floor, I heard the faintest scratching, like fingernails on wood. And then the whisper, "Officer." Softer, desperate. It wasn't a child's voice this time. Lower, raspy, wounded. Something shifted behind me. I spun, light darting, but the corner was empty. The doll's glass eye reflected the beam, staring. I realized I was standing ankle-deep in a dark puddle that hadn't been there before. Water seeping through the ceiling cracks, mixing with blood or oil. Each step left a print in the sludge. I glanced at Patel. He looked as pale as I felt. "Get SWAT, get EMS, get every uniform you have, and bring lights, floodlights. This place hides secrets." He saluted, radio still in hand. "Copy that. I'll coordinate." We backed out of the attic, down 2 flights, each of us silent except for the creaks of floorboards. Outside, the backup cars formed a semicircle, floodlights swinging into life. The world beyond the house was cold and normal. Trees standing silent witnesses, no wind stirring the branches. I paused at the front door, hand on the knob. The whisper came again, from inside the house and through the door, so close I could feel it in my chest. "Stay. With me." I stepped back. That single phrase, a plea and a threat both, echoing off every wooden beam in that cursed structure, solidified my resolve. We were going back in, but this time it would be with every resource we had. As I raised my headset to give the go order, I glanced up at the attic window. In its fractured glass, I saw the faint silhouette of a small girl, her head cocked, watching us. Then she dipped out of sight. I swallowed hard, steeling myself. "All units prepare for entry. SWAT on approach. No one goes in alone." And as the floodlights bathed the house in garish white, I realized that tonight we weren't rescuing a victim. We were chasing a ghost. The steel breech doors rattled as the SWAT team stacked silently behind me. Every uniformed officer and operator was in position, patrol rifles at the ready, ballistic shields gleaming under the floodlights. I glanced down the line. Diaz's jaw was tight, Patel's knuckles white around his flashlight, Kim's lips pressed into a thin line of focus. The hush before entry was thicker than any darkness we'd already faced inside. I lifted my headset mic. Entry team on my count. 3, 2, 1. Grunts of confirmation answered from each point as the front door crashed inward, shield first, battering ram following. The wall of air that hit us carried the same rancid, suffocating odor, like old blood and rotting fabric combined into a single, nauseating breath. I led, with Patel at my side, Zeus just behind him, claws clicking on the cracked linoleum. Inside, the living room lay in ruin. Upended furniture, that single black boot still where I'd left it, and the telltale dust patterns of footprints leading back toward the kitchen. But this time, every piece of evidence felt magnified under the glare of tactical lights. No longer was it just me exploring alone. I had a dozen pairs of eyes and trigger fingers pointed at every shadow. We moved in unison down the hallway, step by careful step. The scribbled warnings on the walls glowed under ballistic flashlight beams. She wants us. Don't listen. Stay away. I tried to ignore them, but every scrawl seemed to squirm in the beam's glare, as though the ink might come alive at any moment. In the kitchen, Diaz knelt beside the teddy bear again, bagging it in an evidence pouch. The blood fragment lay still on the counter. "We need crime scene in here," he murmured into his radio. I nodded, but my eyes were drawn to the pantry door ajar off to the side. It hadn't been opened before. I gestured, and Patel slid forward. He peered inside. Empty shelves coated in dust, but footprints scuffed into the pantry floor dust as though someone had slipped in and out repeatedly. "Looks like foot traffic," he whispered. "Too small for an adult, child's size, in and out." A sudden crack, the sound of wood splitting, echoed overhead. I looked up into the gaping hole in the ceiling where the attic stairs had been wedged. Above us, the beams creaked again, almost like a wind chime made of rotten wood. We all froze. Seconds passed. Then a single, deliberate thump, as if someone heavy had jumped onto the living room floor from above. "Upstairs," I commanded, voice low but urgent. The SWAT stack whirled around and made for the staircase. Each step groaned under our combined weight. Patel and I were last, Zeus between us, low whine at the ready. At the second-floor landing, the hallway stretched into gloom once more, but this time we were 6 strong, shields locked forward, flashlights pinned to shoulders. The footprint trail in the dust was more pronounced here. 2 sets of prints walking side by side, one adult, one child, leading from one room to the next. I recognized the pattern from my earlier sweep, but now there were 2 sets. It was like someone had walked the child upstairs, then left. We cleared each room briskly. Empty beds, torn curtains, and more scribbled messages. In one bedroom, a battered bassinet lay on its side, mattress ripped open and stuffing scattered like spilled cotton. Kim crouched, checking it. "No sign of life," she reported. "But the mattress is damp. Makes me think someone was here very recently." Then, across the hallway, at the far door, Patel motioned. He'd found a child's journal on the floor, a small, spiral-bound notebook with torn pages. He flicked through, childish scrawl at first, sketches of family outings, until a page torn at the bottom showed a single line. "Mommy said I'm bad." Below, a crudely drawn figure in black ink loomed over a crying child, small hands raised in a pleading gesture. My chest tightened. The emotional weight of that simple phrase, scrawled in shaky handwriting, pierced deeper than any physical evidence. I felt my throat constrict. "We need a forensic team up here," I said. My voice sounded distant in my own ears, like someone else's panic creeping in. Patel's radio crackled. "Dispatch. Child's journal recovered. Pages indicate emotional distress. Possible victim of parental harm. Request child protection services. Mental health specialists on site." He paused. "And get a medic up here too. Possible trauma exposure." As we moved on, the footprint trail led to the top of the attic hatch. The hatch was sealed now, reinforced by the SWAT team, but from beneath came a low, rasping whisper. "Officer?" All of us paused. The whisper was soft but urgent, like the last breath of a dying animal. Then the word "help" stretched, elongated, horrifying in its familiarity. I gripped my radio. "Unit 42, identify that voice. Is that the victim or suspect?" Static, then a faint response. "No audible voice on our end. Are you receiving background noise?" Before I could answer, the attic hatch shuddered under the weight of something heavy. A thud, then the sound of planks creaking inward. The SWAT medic aimed a laser sight at the hatch's seam. The beam danced against splintered wood. "Grenade!" someone yelled. My training kicked in. Cover, shield up, but no explosion came. Instead, the hatch burst inward, sending splinters flying, and something dark spilled into the hallway below. A shape, tall and slender, dropped into view. It moved unnaturally fast, twisting midair before crashing against Diaz's shield. He staggered back, shield buckling under the weight. The rest of us opened fire. 3 shots rang out, but the figure absorbed each impact, stumbling into the next room, limbs bending at impossible angles. Adrenaline magnified every sense. The smell of gunpowder, the metallic tang of blood, or was that just fear? The frantic barks of Zeus as he lunged forward, jaws snapping at empty air. I felt my heart riot in my chest as I raced forward, firming my grip on the grip of my rifle. We cleared the room the creature had fled into, a child's playroom. Plastered walls once covered in bright murals, now defaced by deep gouges. The fluorescent bulbs overhead flickered, then died, plunging us into near darkness. Emergency lights bleated on, casting blood-red glows. I swallowed hard. My voice was a rasp. "Sweep and sweep again. Check for wounded." But each corner I turned felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare. Patel's light caught something on the far wall, a fresh handprint in red, streaked downward, extending from waist height to the floor. Below it, a child scrawled words. "She took me." I crouched, inspecting the print. The ridges were jagged, smeared. Someone had slapped that wall in panic, but who and who left the red smear? It was too dark to be just rust or mold. I heard footsteps behind me. Kim, her pistol drawn. Her voice trembled. "Morgan, I saw movement, something, crouched in the corner." She nodded toward the darkened alcove. My flashlight flicked on. There, in the corner, was the little girl. Her back turned, hair long and tangled, wearing a dress dusty and torn. She rocked side to side, humming a lullaby off-key, each note dripping with sorrow. I swallowed. "You okay, kiddo?" I kept my tone gentle, practiced. She didn't turn. Then slowly, she did, head tilting, glassy eyes reflecting my flashlight beam. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Then she raised one small hand and pointed deeper into the darkness behind her. I followed her gesture, breathing shallow. The room stretched into shadow, too dark to see, but something edged at the corner of my vision. A shape crouched low, still. I raised my voice. "Come out with your hands, now!" A faint groan answered from the darkness. The girl's head snapped toward me, and with a speed that made my bullet catch in the chamber, she vanished. evaporated like smoke. My glove slapped my mic. Unit 42. Possible suspect contact. I'm injured. No, I'm okay. Requesting immediate evac. My voice trembled so badly I could barely control it. Behind me, the child's soft giggle echoed. Then, louder and unnatural, a chorus of voices. Whispers, overlapping, pleading, mocking. My eardrums threatened to burst. I forced myself to focus. I pointed my rifle into the black and fired a single round into the void. The impact sent one of the factory-stacked boxes tumbling, releasing a cloud of dust and a cascade of small, brittle objects. Children's teeth, maybe? No, shape of marbles, broken dolls, shards of porcelain. My arm trembled. I stepped back, scanning. The hush returned, but now charged with anticipation, like the earth holding its breath before a quake. I locked eyes with Diaz across the room. His expression was raw. "We need to pull back," he shouted over the ringing in my ears. "This is beyond—" But before I could finish, the floorboards behind us gave way. A deafening crack, then we were sliding, fighting to stay upright, as the entire section of floor pitched downward into darkness. I fell forward, shot out of my boots, tumbling into void. The last thing I saw was the red glow of emergency lights spinning above me, and the echoing chorus of 1,000 children's voices whispering, "Stay, stay with us." Then everything went black. The world lurched beneath me and I slammed into rough timbers, wood splinters tearing at my jacket as the floor gave way. I tumbled 12 feet into darkness, skidding to a halt against a damp earthen wall. My rifle clattered away somewhere in the gloom, and my helmet spun loose, slamming into my temple. Stars bloomed in my vision as I lay on my back, lungs burning from the sudden drop. Behind me, I heard Patel's voice crackling through my radio. "Unit 42, you there?" My radio mic ground out static. I coughed, tasted grit, and forced myself upright. My hand found the wall's jagged stone blocks, slick with mold and moisture. I switched on my flashlight taped to my wrist. The beam stabbed into the darkness, revealing a narrow chamber littered with broken floorboards, scattered detritus and old roots snaking down from overhead. I blinked against the glare. Farther in, I saw two shapes, Diaz and Kim, lying still on the ground beside the hatch. "Diaz! Kim!" I called, voice raw. I stumbled toward them, slipping on mud. Patel's flashlight beam cut across the chamber entrance. He slid down the dirt slope, landing beside me. Zeus padded in last, muzzle low, whining softly. Diaz groaned and rolled onto his side, eyes fluttering open. Kim was unconscious, head bleeding from a gash above her eyebrow. I knelt, knees, protesting, and checked Kim's pulse. Weak, but there. I ripped a strip of my uniform shirt, pressed it to her wound. Diaz sat up, rubbing his jaw. "You okay, Morgan?" he rasped. "Cut and bruised," I answered. "But I need your weapon." He handed me his patrol rifle, the barrel crusted with mud. I slung it over my shoulder. "We need to find the rest of the team and get out, fast." Patel nodded, voice tight. "This tunnel, it leads deeper. I traced it as far as I could with Zeus." The dog's hackles bristled as he nosed at a collapsed archway. "There's a lower level." I pressed my wrist light into Patel's hand and motioned. "Let's move." Supporting Kim between us, we limped through the chokehold of walls. Each footstep echoed in the hollow chamber, disturbing clouds of dust that drifted like gray smoke. The air was heavy, stale, suffocating, with a faint metallic tang. After 50 yards, the passage sloped downward into a wide subterranean gallery. My light played across rough-cut stone walls lined with shallow alcoves, each cradling moldering crates and plastic storage bins. The floor was slanted toward a shallow trench filled with cold water that reflected our beams in rippled patterns. I crouched to peer into the trench. Something dark and ovoid floated on the surface, drifting toward me. I grabbed it with gloved fingertips and yanked it up. It was a tarnished music box, its exterior carved with a child's name. Claire. The lid hung loose on its hinges, and when I pried it open, the mechanism whined in protest, squealing out a warped lullaby that twisted in the air like a dying thing. I shivered, closing it and tucking it into my jacket. A sudden splash to my left made me spin. Patel pointed his light. Wet footprints led away from the water toward a rusted steel door set into the far wall. The door was dented, padlock long since cut off, hinges half rotted. Above it, someone had scrawled 2 words in black ash. "Welcome home." I pressed my shoulder against the door. It groaned, then swung inward to reveal a pitch-black chamber. Heat billowed out, carrying the stench of decay and chemicals, like bleach mixed with rot. Patel unclipped a flash grenade from his belt, primed it, and lobbed it across the threshold. It burst with a blinding flash and ear-shattering crack. I covered my ears as the light faded. Inside, we found a long corridor lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs, half burnt out, buzzing with electrical arcing. The walls were tiled in grimy white, many tiles missing, revealing brick behind. I could make out silhouetted figures lying against the walls, mounds under stained sheets, each covered in blood-soaked blankets. I swallowed hard. These were victims? Children, maybe? Their hands peeked from beneath, small and pale, fingers twisted at odd angles. Patel swallowed visibly. This is a slaughterhouse. I crouched by the nearest shape and peeled back the sheet. A boy, no more than 6, lay on a makeshift gurney, eyes open, empty sockets staring at the ceiling. His lips were parted, bluish, and I couldn't tell if he was alive or gone. A makeshift IV stand nearby held a bag of dark red fluid, dripping into a clear chamber. I gagged, stepping back. Zeus growled low in his throat. We backed out of the corridor, hearts pounding. I hit the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 42. Multiple miners down, possible organ harvesting site. We need immediate EMS and hazmat." Static, no response. My blood ran cold. No comms, no external support. Behind us, distant footsteps echoed, uneven, dragging. I leveled my rifle at the corridor entrance. "Who's here?" my voice echoed. Then, a soft humming from the far end. Something childlike, a nursery rhyme. Off-key, mournful, rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. I exchanged a glance with Patel. We moved back down the corridor, weapons raised. Each step made the humming louder, closer. Paint peeled from the walls where tiny handprints had smudged sharp corners. The overhead bulbs flickered, revealing a small figure at the end. Delicate, pale, wearing a tattered white dress. I advanced, heart hammering. The figure was a girl, hair matted, head tilted. Her eyes hollow-gazed ahead, but the humming continued. I called, voice gentle. "It's okay. I'm Officer Morgan. We're here to help. Can you tell me your name?" She raised one hand, pointing at the floor. I shone my beam downward. There, scrawled in what looked like blood, were words. "Under my house." The girl vanished in a blinding flicker as the bulbs died, leaving us in darkness again. I clicked on my flashlight, beam shaking, and saw that the bodies under sheets were gone. No gurneys, no sheets, just empty hooks on the walls. The corridor behind us had sealed. Doors slid closed in metal grooves, trapping us. A slow clank sounded above, like the house settling or breathing. Then dripping water began, steady and slow, echoing off the walls. Patel jammed his radio mic. "Unit 42 to dispatch. Please respond." He pounded the device. Silence. I pressed my back to the tiled wall. gloved fingers trembling. They blocked the entrance, were locked in. My voice was hollow. Kim groaned behind me, stirring. I knelt beside her, checking her eyes. She opened them, fear pooling in her gaze. "Chris?" she croaked. "Kim, stay with me," I said, patting her shoulder. "We'll get you out." Up ahead, the humming resumed, softer, insistent, drawing us forward. Patel shone his light toward a side door that hadn't been there before. Heavy steel, no handle, just an exhaust vent cut into the center. Through it, dim red light pulsed. I took a breath. "We're going in." We pried open the vent grate and wriggled through single file. The red glow revealed a massive chamber lined with surgical tables, each topped with cracked plexiglass lids. Beneath the lids lay dolls, hundreds of dolls, each with human hair glued to their heads and red-stained cloth where their clothes would be. The dolls' faces were identical. Pale porcelain, glassy eyes, cheeks streaked with tears. My stomach turned. I slammed the vent grate shut behind us, and in the sudden quiet the dolls began to creak, as though shifting on their tables. A high-pitched giggle ran around the room, echoing crazily. I leveled my rifle at the nearest table. The doll's eyes turned directly toward me. A voice, soft, mechanical, whispered, "Look at us." Then, from every table, dozens of dolls lurched upright, glass eyes clicking, arms lifting. Their limbs moved jerkily, strings hidden in the shadows pulling them. The giggles morphed into screams. Voices layered atop each other in a choral cacophony. Zeus snarled and lunged at the closest doll but bounced off its plastic head as though hitting wood. I fired a round between two tables. The bullet tore through porcelain, shattering the doll into shards and bone fragments. The scream intensified, and an icy wind gusted around us, swirling paper bits and dust in a mini hurricane. Patel shouted, "Back to the vent!" We scrambled, dragging Kim and Diaz behind, boots slipping on broken porcelain. I rounded the last table and slammed my shoulder into the grate. It popped open. We squeezed back into the duct, hearts pounding, hearing the dolls' wood-on-wood footsteps behind us as they pursued. Inside the vent, the red light flickered, then died, replaced by darkness deeper than before. My flashlight caught a final image on the vent wall, dozens of tiny footprints, as if someone had danced across it. In the center, fresh mud circled a word pressed into the metal by a small hand. "Stay." I exchanged a look with Patel. He swallowed, face pale. "This house. It's alive." My radio crackled once, so faint I wasn't sure. Then a single voice, our dispatcher, more distant than any repeater should allow. "Morgan, do you copy?" I hit the mic. "Dispatch, we're alive. Barely. We need extraction at 118 Whitaker Lane. You read me?" Static. Then, "Dispatch to all units. Abandon the house. It's unsecured. Evacuate immediately." We stopped in the vent, breathless. Silence reigned behind and ahead. The floor above creaked again, almost like a heartbeat. Then came a distant whisper, a single syllable drawn out, twisting in the darkness. "Please." I closed my eyes, pressed my rifle tight. "Let's go home." And with that, we crawled forward into pitch black, praying we would find the hatch that led back to the surface, and away from the horrors lurking under our own boots. I forced myself forward through the pitch-dark duct, each breath rasping in my chest as Patel and I half-dragged Diaz and Kim behind us. The stale air tasted of rust and rot, and every shift in the metal duct made me flinch, imagining hands reaching out to grab me. Zeus patted close, his nails clicking on the ribbed metal. I pressed ahead on hands and knees until I felt the familiar seam of the floor hatch overhead. With a grunt, I pushed against it. It gave at last, and daylight, weak and gray, filtered in. We tumbled out onto the basement floor, lungs filling with crisp air for the first time in what felt like hours. Patel slammed the hatch closed and wedged it with a crowbar. My radio crackled. All units, status. It was dispatch, clearer than before. I keyed back. Unit 42. 4 officers down, need EMS and SWAT extraction here immediately. I stamped the mud off my boots and took in the shattered crates, the echo of distant sirens growing louder. Paramedics arrived first, rushing to Kim's side. I laid her on a stretcher and felt her clammy hand slip from mine. "Hang in there," I told her, though I wasn't sure she could hear. Diaz and Patel got medical attention next. Cuts, bruises, exhaustion. Each time I glanced at them, I saw the same hollow look of disbelief. No one spoke. We'd all seen too much. The SWAT commanders moved in, securing the basement and taking statements. "Morgan, Patel, good to see you alive," one of them said, voice tight. He kept his distance, eyes flicking at the battered walls and the makeshift gurneys we'd discovered. "What have we got?" he asked. I swallowed hard. Organ harvesting, children, dolls rigged to surveillance, possible paranormal activity. The place is a cage, and beyond that, I trailed off. He nodded grimly, radioing for a full CSI team and homicide detectives. I sat on a stacked crate outside the hatch, watching paramedics wheel Kim past me. Zeus nosed my boot, whining softly. I patted his head. "We'll get them out," I murmured. He thumped his tail once, as if to agree. Above us, the basement hatch hung heavy under boarded windows, the farmhouse looming like an accusing eye. Hours later, I found myself in the ER hallway, coffee in one hand, chart in the other. Kim was stable, concussion, shock, but awake. Diaz had a fractured wrist and bruised ribs. Patel needed stitches but would recover. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. A nurse gave me a sympathetic nod. "You all right, officer?" she asked. I shrugged, just tired. I wrapped my arms around myself for warmth against the fluorescent chill. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from dispatch. They'd attached audio from the 911 call that had first sent me to the house. I tapped play and froze. Behind the neighbor's panicked voice, I heard it. The faintest lullaby, tinny, off-key, indistinguishable words floating beneath. Then a whisper. "Stay with me." The audio crackled, and I clicked off the file. I sank into a plastic chair, mind racing. That whisper, I'd thought I'd imagined it in the attic. But there it was, recorded. "Stay with me." The words echoed in my skull. I closed my eyes against the hospital lights, trying to shove the memory away. Later that afternoon, I returned to the station alone. My shift was over, but I couldn't go home. Maple Hollow Lane haunted every corner of my thoughts. At my locker, I found an envelope on top. No name, no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid, the family portrait we'd pulled from the basement chamber. The photo was the same, but this time the children's smiles were scratched out, names scrawled in black ink. Beneath, a message handwritten on the white border, "Thank you for coming." My stomach clenched. I checked the timestamp. It was taken just this morning at 9:03. How could that be? That family photo had lived unseen for decades under the farmhouse floor, and yet someone, or something, had placed it on my locker. Someone was watching. I stuffed the photo into my pocket and left the station, boots echoing on the concrete. Outside, a cold breeze stirred fallen leaves. My car sat under a street lamp. I climbed in, locked the doors, and exhaled. The dashboard clock read 21:47. My shift was over. I was free to go. I reached for the ignition, then stopped. On the passenger seat lay Claire's music box, the one I'd grabbed from the trench. I hadn't brought it out of evidence. I certainly hadn't put it there. The lid was cracked open, and the warped lullaby mechanism clicked faintly, as if powered by its own broken will. My heart jolted. Before I could decide what to do, my radio buzzed with a priority alert. Officer Morgan, Unit 42, new 911 call. Location, 118 Whitaker Lane, Maple Hollow. My own voice transmitted back, "Dispatch, confirm location," but the standard automated reply was already recording. I swallowed, hands trembling on the wheel. The house sat only 15 minutes away. Backup wouldn't arrive in time if there was another breach. My training said never go alone, but my gut twisted into knots. The little girl's voice, the whisper, she was still there, calling. I pocketed my phone, picked up the music box and let it wind down until the last distorted notes faded. My reflection in the windshield stared back, exhausted, terrified, and inexplicably compelled. I stepped out of the cruiser and locked the door. The wind rattled the shutters of an empty storefront across the street, carrying a faint, echoing laughter. I slipped the music box into my jacket and started down the dark road toward Whitaker Lane, flashlight in hand. Behind me, the station's lights flickered briefly, then steadied. Ahead, Maple Hollow stretched in shadow. I took a deep breath, steadied my grip, and moved forward. What if this was never over? What if it only ever wanted me to stay? I'm Officer Mark Johnson. Been on the force 15 years and thought I'd seen every kind of abandoned house call you could imagine. But nothing prepared me for 814 Maplewood Drive. That night started like any other. The headset crackled around 1:47 a.m. The dispatcher reading off a call about screaming heard through boarded-up windows. I clicked the mic off, glanced over at my partner Davis in the passenger seat and gave him a curt nod. Neither of us said much. At this hour, professionalism meant keeping your mouth shut and your senses sharp. The cruiser's tires whispered over cracked asphalt as we rolled down the deserted suburban street. Street lamps flickered above neatly trimmed lawns, then gave way to overgrown hedges and rust-stained mailboxes. We passed row after row of cookie-cutter homes, some empty lots, some occupied, and finally came to a blank lot where 814 should have been. Instead, a rusted sign leaned against a tree stump. Private property. No trespassing. I shone my spotlight and made out a sagging porch, roof tiles missing, half the boards rotted through. Davis eased the truck to a stop under a skeletal oak that creaked with every gust of wind. He killed the engine, and the world went quiet. I felt the silence in my bones, heavy as wet wool. I checked my sidearm, ran a hand over the worn leather grip, then clicked on my flashlight. The beam cut a narrow swath through the darkness, illuminating only what stood directly in front of me, nothing beyond. For a place that looked deserted for decades, it still felt watched. We climbed the porch steps, each board groaning under our boots. A cigarette butt, half burnt and yellowed, lay smoldering in an ashtray cracked open on a rotted table. No way it had been left there recently. No one dared linger in a house like this. I tapped the front door 3 times with my flashlight's butt. No answer, of course, just the echo of metal on wood and a low moan that might have been the wind. Davis raised his hand. Backup was still 10 minutes out. I nudged the door gently, and it gave way with a tortured squeal like a dying animal. Inside, the air was stale, musty with mold, thick with dead leaves and dust. My boots kicked up a swirl of particles that drifted in the beam like ghosts dancing. The hallway stretched out before us. Wallpaper peeled in yellowed strips, floorboards buckled. I could almost taste the rot that clung to the plaster walls. Every instinct screamed to turn around, but protocol and curiosity pushed me onward. We moved as a unit, sweeping the main floor first. The living room was empty except for a tattered couch and broken picture frames. A piano in the corner had its keys shredded, one black tooth jutting out among the white. On a side table, a child's shoe lay on its side, single and dust-ridden. My stomach dropped. I snapped off a quick photo for evidence, then moved on to the kitchen, where pots hung like skeletons from a ceiling rack, and the sink was clogged with debris that might once have been dishes. As we passed the back doorway, a soft thump echoed upstairs, followed by a child's sob that seemed too close for comfort. My heart rate picked up, pulse hammering in my temples. I look at Davis, his face pale in the moonlight filtering through cracked glass. He swallowed once, hard. "You hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, finger on my mic. Unit 24 here, confirming possible juvenile inside, able to respond upstairs. The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Backup ETA 3 minutes. Proceed with caution." We climbed the stairs 2 at a time. The railing wobbled, sending splinters down the banister track. Each step creaked beneath our weight. At the top, the hallway stretched dimly to the left and right, doors ajar like yawning maws. We heard shuffling from the far end. An uneven footstep followed by softly thudding sobs. My flashlight's beam swept across family portraits shattered on the floor, faces scratched away as if someone tried to erase their history. I approached the first door on the right. Inside was a child's bedroom, a bed stripped bare, stuffed animals scattered, a mobile hanging frozen overhead. The rocking chair in the corner moved back and forth all on its own, though no breeze stirred. My mouth went dry. "Mark, this chair," Davis began, voice cracking. I put a hand on his shoulder, silent sign to stay calm. I stepped closer, light trained on the chair's empty seat swinging gently. A sudden metallic click made me spin. The door at the end of the hall slammed shut. My chest constricted. The sobbing stopped. I called out, "Unit 24, state your location." That's when the floor beneath me creaked sharply, 2 planks ahead, shattering the quiet, and I saw small footprints in the thin layer of dust, leading away down the hallway toward the attic hatch partially pulled ajar. I caught my breath, followed the tracks with my light. They were bare, like a child's, and fresh, no more than minutes old, maybe seconds. I crouched to inspect them. 5 tiny toes, imprinted clearly, pressing into the dust. My radio buzzed insistently. "Unit 24, backup on scene." Relief flashed through me but mixed with dread. I peeked up at the attic entrance. Darkness gaped like a mouth. I motioned to Davis to hold our position. He nodded, hand shaking on his weapon. We both took a step back, listening. That's when I heard it. A barely audible whisper, unmistakable. "Officer, help me." The voice was soft, lilted, childlike, but something in it twisted my gut. I keyed my mic, but only static came through. I looked at the attic entrance again. The air felt charged, heavy. My flashlight flickered, and in that instant I saw her. A silhouette of a little girl, pale, hair falling loose over her shoulders, standing just inside the attic's darkness. She raised a small hand as if to wave, but her head tilted at an impossible angle. Then she vanished. A chill ran down my spine. I glanced at Davis, who swallowed audibly. The footprints ended directly beneath the attic hatch. I swallowed against the lump in my throat and crouched, hand on the trapdoor handle. Backup was here now, their flashlights bobbing on the porch outside. But I knew I couldn't wait. Whatever was up there, waiting in that black sky of boards, had lured me inside and wouldn't let me leave until it was ready. I lifted the hatch, heard the wood protest, and peered up into an abyss. A cold draft rushed past, carrying the faintest echo of child's laughter. My heart pounded as I braced myself to climb. I caught one last glimpse of that tiny footprint, pointing upward, and heard the whisper again, urgent and broken. "Find me." My hand trembled as I hauled myself through the hatch and into the attic's suffocating gloom. The moment my boots hit the rough wooden planks above, the door slammed shut behind us with a thunderous bang that rattled my teeth. My flashlight beam cut a narrow swath through swirling dust motes, revealing a labyrinth of rafters, leftover furniture, and tattered insulation clinging to the pitched roof like decaying spiderwebs. Every breath I drew tasted of must and decay. Davis pressed his back against the main joist, eyes wide. "Mark, are you—" he began, voice shaking so badly I almost couldn't make out the words. I swallowed hard, flicked my light up and down. "Stay close," I whispered. My radio crackled overhead, but I muted it. The attic was too confined, too dangerous for extra noise. My partner and I crept forward on hands and knees, inching between stacks of broken boxes and furniture draped in filthy sheets. The only sound was our boots creaking and the wind rattling boards through hidden gaps. Shadows danced against the rafters, and I felt a prickling on the back of my neck, like dozens of unseen eyes watching. A drift of children's drawings pinned to a rotting bulletin board caught my flashlight. Crayon sketches of stick figures, houses, suns. Then one replaced the sun with a gray moon that bled black tears. Underneath, in childish scrawl, "She watches." My pulse spiked. I snapped a quick photo for the report but left the board intact. Then I noticed a small handprint in dark red dust on a nearby beam. Tiny fingers, thumb hooked low, paint smeared and faded. The footprint matched those I'd seen in the hallway below. Davis crouched beside me, pale light glinting off his sweat-damp forehead. "What is this place?" he rasped. "Who would live up here?" I didn't answer. Part of me wanted to turn back, but every instinct I'd honed over 15 years screamed that we'd chase this as far as it would go. The basement call hadn't been a prank. Something, someone, had led us here. I pointed my beam toward a gable window half covered by weathered plywood. Moonlight slanted in, illuminating a dusty trunk chained shut with rusted padlocks. The chain rested on the floorboards like a snake. Something about the way the trunk seemed out of place on a floor littered with junk made me think it was important. I knelt and examined the chains. They were new, no more than weeks old, despite the rust on the box itself. Whoever locked this here had done so recently. "Check the corners," I told Davis. He fumbled along the wall, patting down cobwebs until his light caught on something small and shiny. He lifted a tarnished brass locket from the floor. A girl's locket engraved with the initials E.L. I flipped it open. A cracked black and white photo of a little girl, eyes fixed on the camera with a solemn expression. I closed it gently. E.L., I murmured, could be the girl's name. My throat tightened. I slipped the locket into an evidence bag from my vest. A sudden scrape from the far end of the attic made us whip around. My beam swung into a shadow where two boards overlapped at the eaves. The boards shifted slightly, as if pushed from the other side. I hollered, "Show yourself!" My voice echoed, and for a moment, nothing but the wind's lament. Then a small, childlike laugh, soft, distant, echoing through the rafters. It sounded fearful and mocking at the same time. My blood ran cold. I clicked on my radio channel. Unit 24, we need quiet. Checking the attic. No sign of a juvenile. Just found footprints and a chandelier of pictures. The dispatcher's voice came through clipped. Backup staging point Alpha, medics en route, overhead lights on. I keyed off again. Muzzle discipline first, clarity later. I shifted my light back to the window trunk. Something in my gut told me that was the next clue. I knelt and pried at the padlock with a small multi-tool. The chain rattled. As I worked, I felt Davis's hand on my shoulder. He pointed behind me at a slanted beam where claw marks scored the wood, deep gouges that hadn't been there before. Or I hadn't noticed. The gouges started low, like someone dragged their fingernails, and lifted upward in a desperate clawing motion. At the top of the gouge was a small doll's hand. Its wrist severed, stuffing spilled onto the plank. The doll's face was pale porcelain, one glass eye cracked, the other missing. I staggered back. Davis whispered, "What the hell happened here?" I swallowed, glancing at the attic door. A single step back and we'd slam into the hatch. If something was shutting that behind us, it could trap us. I unhooked the chain, pried the lock off, and swung the trunk's lid open. Inside lay shredded clothing. A battered bonnet, a child's dress modeled with age. But there, at the bottom, was a small leather-bound book embossed with ornate script. Journal of Eleanor Langley, 1923. I gingerly pulled it free, dust pooling in the crook of my arm. The moment I opened to the first page, the attic light seemed to dim, even though I knew it was only moonlight. The script was slanted, elegant, the ink sepia faded. I hear her at night whispering my name. She watches from the shadows, her dress torn, eyes hollow. I cannot leave, my breath caught. I flipped pages, scanning frantic entries about a child named Eleanor, daughter of the farmhouse's last residents, who vanished without a trace nearly a century ago. Locals whispered she wandered the halls, calling for someone to find her. The final entry stopped mid-sentence. They lock me away, I scratch at the boards, but only the darkness listens. Suddenly, above us, sawdust rained from a joist. The beams trembled. Davis pointed upward. A triangular hatch on the sloping roof had cracked open, letting in a blast of cold wind. The attic hatch we'd climbed through whined, as if tightening. I snapped the journal shut and tucked it into my vest. "Davis, we need to get this downstairs. Now." My tone brooked no argument. We inched back toward the hatch, but the attic floor shifted underfoot. The boards groaned like a slow death rattle. I put a hand out to steady myself, and my fingers brushed against something wet. I glared down to see a shallow puddle of blood seeping from between the planks. Tiny drops, fresh and sticky. I looked at Davis, whose face had gone ashen. "Mark, do you see that?" he stammered. The blood pooled around another set of small footprints. These pressed firmly into it, leading away toward the gable window. My stomach churned. I holstered my radio and drew my sidearm. "One at a time," I murmured, motioning to the window while scanning for a way out. As Davis and I edged toward the collar beam, a sound like twigs snapping below made me whip around. My light swung over to the far corner of the attic where a makeshift bed had been built. A decaying mattress stuffed with straw, a child's doll propped upright. The doll spun slowly on its own, head tilting to one side. Its cracked eye glinted in my flashlight beam. Then it laughed, a high-pitched, echoing cackle that sent a wave of nausea through me. I aimed my light at the doorway and beckoned Davis. "We go down, careful, on me." We climbed, body first, through the hatch, sliding into the hallway in a cloud of dust. My boots hit solid wood, but the hallway felt wrong, longer, narrower, like the house had shifted around us. The portraits lining the walls now stared blankly, their faces scratched out completely. The rocking chair in the child's room lay toppled over, as if kicked recently. The attic hatch above us snapped shut with a final crack. Davis exhaled rapidly. "That journal? What the hell was that?" he gasped. I peered at the pages through the clear plastic evidence bag and frowned. A century-old diary, but those footprints were fresh. She's still here, wherever here really is. I racked my mind. The scream that got us here sounded like a child's voice in the basement, but we'd never made it back downstairs. I pointed to the doorway leading back toward the stairs. "Let's go. We find the basement door, now open, and get that little girl out." We hustled back down the hallway, each step echoing. The once sturdy stairs now creaked ominously. A distant thump echoed below, like something heavy shifting in the dark. I descended, 2 at a time, Davis right behind me. The first floor was bathed in pale moonlight. The basement trapdoor stood partly open, squeaking on its hinges. Something had pushed it open from below. I glanced at Davis. He nodded, flashlight trained on the opening. We knelt at the edge and peered down. The basement floor was slick. My light reflected off puddles. The words, "She's mine," were scrawled in fresh crimson across the far wall. "Blood," Davis whispered, "not paint." Tiny handprints trailed from the door toward a dark corner where a shape huddled. I called, "Eleanor?" "It's Officer Johnson. We're going to get you out." My voice sounded hollow. The huddled form eased upright, revealing the pale face of a little girl, barefoot and filthy, wearing that same tattered dress from the attic drawings. Her hair matted, eyes black hollows. She tilted her head, and saliva gleamed on her lips. When she spoke, it wasn't with her mouth, but directly inside my mind. "Do you belong to me, officer?" My blood turned to ice. I snapped off my radio, reached for my taser, too slow. She rose and glided forward, no sound on the water-slick concrete. As she lifted a tiny hand, a flash of movement behind her caught my focus. A silhouette pressing against the broken support beam. Another child, eyes unfocused, mouth agape in a silent scream. Davis shrieked. I fired my taser at the first figure, but the prongs passed through an empty space. The figure flickered like static, eyes widening as if hurt. I shouted, "We back out." "Now." Grabbing Davis's arm, I hauled him toward the stairs. Behind us, the sense of cold dread swelled into a roar. The trapdoor above creaked, as if something massive wanted back in. My boots slipped in the bloody puddle, nearly toppling me. Davis's flashlight spun, beam cutting across the wall, scrawls and dripping blood. He stumbled, but I caught him, half dragging, half leading him up the steps. We burst through into the living room, hearts pounding so hard it felt like thunder in our ears. The house sighed, walls shifting, as if exhaling after a long hold. I slammed the front door shut, and the lock clicked, echoing too loud. We leaned against it, panting. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the empty yard. No sign of the girl, no footprints, only our fading reflections in the glass. Davis grabbed my arm. "Mark, there's something on your sleeve." I looked down to see fresh blood tracking from my shoulder to my cuff. I wiped it on my pant leg. Dark, sticky that smelled metallic. I flicked the radio back on. "Unit 24, evac that house. Biohazard, nobody else goes in." The dispatcher's voice returned calm but urgent. "Copy that. All units stand by." As backup arrived, I unholstered my baton and kicked open the ashtray on the porch. No butt remained, only scattered ash. I looked back at the house, windows dark, shuttered. The wind died. All I heard was my own ragged breathing. The address sign on the tree stump twisted in the windless air, reading 814 Maplewood Drive. Underneath, a single child's shoe lay in the grass, the match to the one I'd photographed inside. I slid my gaze up to the attic window. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a small face pressed against the glass, eyes pleading. Then nothing. My instinct screamed something wasn't done, but any sane cop would wait for hazmat and mental health teams now. I pressed the radio again. Unit 24 standing by for debrief. My partner didn't even wait for my cue. He sank to his knees on the porch, head in hands. I steadied my breathing and looked at that lone shoe. "You don't belong here," I muttered, tone half curse, half prayer. But deep down, I knew the girl, Eleanor, wouldn't leave until someone helped her. And if that someone wasn't me, who else would it be? My uniform felt like a straitjacket as I sat in the debrief room, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Detective Lane tapped her pen against the file on the table. "Mark, you're telling us you saw footprints and fresh blood, heard a little girl's voice in your head, saw a trunk chain itself shut." She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. I swallowed, resting both hands flat on the laminate surface. "That's exactly what happened," I said. And when I tried to grab her, she just vanished. My partner Davis stood beside me, dazed, replaying every second in his mind as though hoping to turn it into a normal memory. The captain sighed. "We'll send hazmat in tomorrow for a full sweep, but until then, you two are off the call. We don't need any more incidents." I forced a nod, but inside I was already racing back through those blood-slicked boards, the attic's choking air still clinging to my lungs. That night at home, I lay on the sofa in my living room, uniform still on, boots by the coffee table. My wife, Laura, peeked around the corner. "Mark, you okay?" She looked at me like I was a ghost myself. "Just long night," I muttered. She sat beside me, hand brushing my arm. Normally, I'd brush her off, but I needed the touch, something solid in a world gone upside down. I pictured the little girl's hollow eyes, the way her mouth twisted to shape a laugh that belonged in nightmares. I closed my heavy eyelids, and immediately I was under that attic's pitched roof again, breathing in rot as if it were mine. Sleep finally found me, but only in fits. My dreams were a cacophony of whispers. "Find me. You left me." I'd bolt upright, sweat soaking my collar, convinced I was back in those dusty rafters. Once, I dreamt I was back in the house at night with only my flashlight. The beam swung erratically until it landed on me. My own face staring back, black-eyed and grinning. I woke to my own gasp, heart pounding so loud I thought the walls would shake. I checked my phone, 3:42 a.m. The same as when we first pulled up. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a place could trap you even after you'd left. By morning, my head felt like a lead weight. I chugged coffee in the locker room and forced a laugh at the other officers' jokes. Inside, though, I was retreating, shrinking away from their noise. The station's corridors, once a predictable maze of cases and reports, felt alien. I found myself trance-walking to the archives room, scanning old microfilm for any records on Maplewood Drive. There was a brief mention in the 1920 ledger, a coroner's note on a missing girl, Eleanor Langley, age 6, reported runaway after her father's passing. The entry ended with unresolved. I pressed my finger on the yellowed paper. That name echoed in my skull. Eleanor Langley. After lunch, I made a call to the county historian, Dr. Pratt, a wiry man with thick glasses who loved local lore. He met me in the dusty basement office stacked with boxes. "Eleanor's story is tragic," he said, adjusting his spectacles. Her family left suddenly. The property was condemned in '24 after a series of unexplained disturbances, strange lights, sounds, footprints found in the attic dust. But no one could verify anything, so it was swept under the rug of local legend. He rubbed his chin. It's not uncommon for old tragedies to warp people's perceptions, especially in empty places. I noted his skepticism but pressed on. Is there any way to confirm if anyone else heard her? Any recorded witness statements? He shook his head. Just whispers and rumors, the kind that stains a house forever. That afternoon, I filed for special clearance and gear, respirators, evidence bags, and portable lights. I assembled a small team, 2 forensics techs, a chaplain to offer spiritual support if needed, and Davis. None spoke much on the drive back to Maplewood. We parked in the ruins of the driveway. Daylight revealed detail the night had hidden. The siding's paint peeled like sunburned skin, and vines strangled the porch pillars. Inside, the house was eerily undisturbed since our last sweep. The living room couch sagged the same way. The kitchen sink still held dead leaves. Dust lay thick across the floorboards, and in toyon berries on the windowsill I saw tiny depressions. Footprints, tiny as a child's, pressed into the grime. I caught a forensic tech bagging a sample. "These prints fresh?" I asked. He looked at me sideways. "Less than an hour old," he said, wiping his gloves. My heart cracked. "How can that be?" Davis chimed in. "Either someone's messing with us, or someone's really still here." The chaplain muttered a prayer. I clenched my jaw. We stacked floodlights in the corner and set them to blast the walls. Then we sent the lead tech, Jenkins, into the kitchen to mark the footprints trail to the stairs. I stayed behind, examining the hallway for any trace of that first scribble. "She's mine." It was still there, scrawled in dried blood. I knelt, finger tracing the letters. My finger came away sticky. Night fell again faster than usual. We watched monitors from Davis's cruiser, feeds from the static cameras we'd installed in the corridors and attic. At 7:13 p.m., a camera in the upstairs hallway flickered to life. A little girl in a white dress stood at the foot of the stairs, exactly where Jenkins had found the footprints, holding out her hand. Jenkins rushed up there physically, but the camera showed it empty when he arrived. On the monitor, the girl turned toward the camera and smiled, cocking her head sideways. A second later, the screen went to snow. I radioed everyone. "All units pull back to staging. Nobody enters without me." My boots fell hard on the porch steps as I sprinted outside. Jenkins met me, eyes wide as saucers. I swear, she looked right at me, but when I got inside, nobody there. The footprints stopped at mid-stair. He swallowed. I nodded, voice tight. "We're done tonight. Gather your gear and let's get out." Back at the station, I stowed evidence and sat alone in the interrogation room. My eyes were raw, vision swimming. The journal of Eleanor Langley lay on the table, its leather cover scuffed. I opened to the last entry. "They lock me away." The words twisted inside me. I rummaged through my vest pockets and pulled out the little brass locket. Opening it, I stared at the girl's solemn face and felt a tear burn inside. A tap at the glass made me jump, Davis on the other side, shaking his head. I unlocked the door and stood, back rigid. He led me to the back hallway. "Mark, what are we doing? You're pushing this too far." His voice cracked. "We need to let the experts handle it." I stared at him. "I can't, not until I know she's at peace." He shook off my grip. "I'm going home." Davis walked away, leaving me, alone with the cold, fluorescent lights and my own thoughts. I flicked off the lamp and stepped into the dark corridor. In that moment, I heard it clearly, a soft, lilting voice calling my name from the ceiling tiles. "Officer Johnson, find me." I froze, pulse drumming faster than gunfire. I strapped my holster tight, chest heaving. The station was supposed to be safe. Solid walls, busy halls. But for a second, the ceiling seemed to sag, and shadows pooled at my feet. I swallowed wetly, grabbing the journal and locket. Night had brought Eleanor back into my world, and I realized there was no turning back. I had to find her. But where, and at what cost to my own sanity? I slid out into the night air, the station's neon sign flickering. A beacon of normalcy that felt like a cruel joke. As I climbed into my cruiser, I wondered if saving her would save me, or if I was already too far gone. The engine roared to life, and I punched the address into the GPS. 814 Maplewood Drive. The needle spun to life. I exhaled and slammed the car into drive. Somewhere between the suburbs and that rotten old farmhouse, I promised her I'd finish what I started. But in the back of my mind, a single question echoed louder than the engine. What if she's not waiting to be found, but waiting to find me? I eased the cruiser onto the cracked driveway, heart pounding so hard I wondered if my pulse would break glass. The journal lay on the passenger seat, its leather cover worn where I'd gripped it in the attic. The locket nestled in my palm. Moonlight pooled through the clouded windshield, turning the overgrown yard into shifting shadows. Every instinct screamed not to go back, but I couldn't leave her trapped in that house, not after what I'd seen. I climbed out, the cold night air biting through my uniform, and crossed the lawn, flashlight in one hand, journal and locket in the other. The front door stood ajar, like an invitation or a trap. I paused, drew a deep breath scented with decaying leaves, and stepped inside. The living room was silent in a way that felt heavy, as if the walls themselves remembered every footstep. My beam revealed a broken piano bench, tipped sideways, and the single child's shoe that had been outside now lay in the center of the dusty floor, scuffed and half buried in debris. That shoe had vanished the first night, reappeared during forensic processing, and now it was here again. Proof she was still here, guiding me. I set the locket on a rafter truss, the brass glinting in the light, then flipped through the journal until the front page. I cannot leave. The words stared at me. I whispered, "Eleanor, I'm here." My voice echoed. No answer, only the soft drip of water somewhere deeper in the house. I found the basement trapdoor swung wide. Down the rickety stairs I went, careful not to slip in the shallow puddles. The words, "She's mine," were scrawled in fresh blood across the far wall, exactly where I'd seen them before. Beneath the writing lay a trapdoor I hadn't noticed, a panel that rattled when I pressed my shoulder into it. I forced it open to reveal a narrow descending tunnel of concrete, barely a crawl space. My flashlight cut a ribbon through thick dust as I wriggled in, the air growing colder, tighter. The tunnel opened onto a hidden chamber beneath the house, walls lined with dozens of tiny alcoves, each holding a tiny, dust-crumbled doll or a small human-sized shoe. My stomach twisted. These were the remains of children who'd vanished here over a century. I lifted a broken porcelain hand from one alcove and felt a rush of voices in my head. Find me, free me. My flashlight caught movement at the back of the chamber. A little girl stood in the gloom, face obscured by matted hair. She cradled a blood-stained rag, rocking gently. I swallowed and stepped forward, careful, gun raised but unused. "Eleanor," I called softly, "I'm here to take you home." She tilted her head, the fabric falling away to reveal a pale cheek streaked with tears. Then she smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. Her tiny hand reached up, and as I lunged to take her, the chamber erupted with whispers and cold wind that buffeted me. Boxes of old case files skittered across the floor, rattling like skeleton bones. I crouched, heart hammering, and pried the journal from my belt. I yanked it open to the last page. They lock me away. I scratch at the boards, but only the darkness listens. I slammed the book shut and held it over my head like a shield. The little girl let out a sound that wrenched at my chest. Half cry, half laugh. She raised the rag, and I recognized it. A scrap of dress from my daughter's playhouse back home vanished weeks ago. My breath caught. Guilt spiked through me. She pulled the rag tighter, tears spilling. Then the chamber went deathly silent. The only exit was the tunnel behind me. I turned, adrenaline searing my veins, and scrambled back through the crawlspace. Boards cracked overhead as something butted the hidden hatch from below, trying to close it. I heaved myself out onto the basement floor, chest heaving, then bolted up the stairs. The trapdoor slammed shut with a force that shook the house's foundation. I barreled into the living room, flashlight beam jerking across walls now covered in new scribbles. You came, you saw, you stayed. The piano bench lurched at me as if pushed by unseen hands. I sprinted for the front door, boots slipping in the dust. As I fumbled the lock, a soft, childlike voice whispered in my ear, "Don't leave me." My fingers slammed the deadbolt, and I shoved the door open into the night. Cold air drenched me. I didn't stop until I reached my cruiser, chest tight, vision blurred. I threw open the passenger door and dropped the journal and locket inside, then raked the motor and peeled out onto Maplewood Drive, tires spitting gravel. Dawn's first light was breaking when I pulled into the station lot. My uniform was dust gray, my hands smeared with ancient blood. No one confronted me. Nobody knew I'd gone in alone. I shut off the engine and sat for a moment, hand on the wheel, breathing out hours of fear. The journal lay in the seat beside me, open to a blank page. The locket's clasp was unhooked. Inside, no photograph remained, just a tiny fingerprint pressed into its metal. I stepped out of the cruiser and into the station's antiseptic corridor. The air smelled of coffee and paper. I hung the journal and locket on the evidence board, pinning them above the file labeled Langley Eleanor. Then I turned and walked to my locker, uniform billowing behind me, every step heavier than the last. My reflection in the mirror looked exhausted, eyes shadowed, shoulders slumped. Before I undressed, I pressed my forehead against the glass and whispered, "I freed you, Eleanor." Only silence answered. Later, I'd report no footprints, no whispers, no child, just me and the things I brought out. An empty locket, a blank journal, and a head full of questions. But as I undid my tie, I felt a tickle against my neck. Cold lips brushing down my spine. "Officer Johnson, will you stay?" I yanked around, heart in my throat, but behind me stood nothing but my own hollow reflection. Yet, on the mirror's surface, traced in fog, were two tiny handprints and the words, "I'm still here." They called me off duty, stripped my badge for medical evaluation. But I couldn't stay away. Every hour I spent away from 814 Maplewood Drive felt like a betrayal. Nights in my own bed were torture. The mattress creaked beneath me as if groaning under the weight of memories. My daughter's laughter echoed in the empty rooms. I could taste the rot from that attic in my mouth, still hear the hiss of wind through broken boards. So one night, after everyone had gone home, I left the station under cover of darkness and drove back. The moon was a sliver in a roiling cloud bank when I climbed the crumbling steps. I'd brought gear this time, 2 flashlights, extra batteries, thermal camera, my shotgun slung across my chest, and a small MP3 recorder loaded with white noise to mask the whispers. My breath puffed in front of me as I paused at the threshold, hand on the warped doorframe. I clicked on the recorder. The static filled my ears and the hallway behind it. I stepped inside. The living room was exactly as I'd left it. That single child's shoe in the center of the dust, the piano bench still tipped over, a broken mirror shard wedged between couch springs. I knelt and pressed my palm into the grime. It rose in a gray cloud. I closed my hand around a handful of dust, just for proof, and rose to find the basement trapdoor. Behind it lay the crawlspace tunnel and the chamber of alcoves I'd discovered the second night. I shone a flashlight at the gaping hole in the floor and stepped down, shotgun at the ready. The tunnel was colder than before. My beam illuminated damp concrete walls, spattered with old footprints in blood and dust. The muffled drip of water came from somewhere deeper. My flashlight flickered. I tapped it. Batteries good, then switched to the second. The darkness seemed to contract around me. I offered a silent prayer and pressed on until I emerged in the hidden chamber. The sight nearly made me drop the recorder. Dozens of shoes, tiny, children's, lined the alcoves. Ragged dolls slumped at their feet. Above them, the low ceiling sagged with exposed joists, and in the center of the room, Eleanor stood on a raised dais of broken floorboards, clutching the locket I'd dropped months ago. The brass glinted under my light as if freshly polished. I swallowed, heart hammering so violently I could see each beat in my peripheral vision. She looked the same, matted hair, hollow eyes, but now her skin was blotched with something darker than blood. She tilted her head. "You came back," she said, voice soft, like falling snow. My throat went dry. I pressed the recorder's record button. "I'm here," I rasped. "I'm here to take you home." She didn't move. Then, all at once, every alcove behind her burst into motion. Shoes scrapped the concrete. Dolls' heads snapped upward. The alcoves began to fill with a low mechanical whine, like suction or breathing. My shotgun felt useless in my hands, but I kept it trained on Eleanor as dozens of little shadows unfurled themselves from the niches. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath plume in the flashlight beam. I fell back 2 paces. "Why won't you let me?" I shouted, voice cracking under the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. I stepped forward, the recorder bobbing in my coat pocket. "What do you want from me?" The shadows converged, a writhing mass of tiny forms, dolls and shoe silhouettes sliding toward me. Eleanor raised her hand. The shadows froze instantly, like marionettes on invisible strings. "Stay," she whispered, breath rasping. Her voice echoed in my skull. The shadows parted, forming a corridor that led back into the tunnel. My legs went limp. I swayed on my feet. "Stay with me," she repeated. Tears welled behind my eyes. Grief for the child who never had a family, guilt for the ones I'd left behind, fear for what I was about to do. I holstered my shotgun and stepped forward. The tunnel entrance loomed like a promise. One step, then another. I reached the threshold. The alcoves fell silent. The dim light from my flashlight collapsed into darkness. I felt her hand on my shoulder, colder than steel. I spun, flashlight raising too slowly, just in time to see her face inches from mine, hollow eyes dripping shadows. She smiled. Then the recorder clicked off. Either I'd bumped the switch or the battery died. In that heartbeat of silence, I realized she wasn't leading me out. She was bringing me in. Fear surged. I lunged backward, shotgun swinging, but there was nowhere to put distance between us. The walls closed in. The alcove's niches snapped shut like trapdoors. The tunnel behind me sealed itself with a wooden beam that nailed itself into place, wood rasping against concrete. My flashlight dimmed to a flicker. I fumbled with the recorder. It sputtered back to life just as the shadows in the alcoves peeled away, rising up into the air around Eleanor. They formed a halo of shapes, dolls, shoes, fragments of laughter echoing off the dripping walls. I tried to call out through the static, "Dispatcher, this is Unit 24," but only a strangled gasp came out. My chest burned. The recorder's red light pulsed. I pointed it at her. "Eleanor Langley," I stuttered. "Tell me what you—" A scraping claw rasped across the ceiling joist. The recorder swung upward, recording nothing but white noise and a soft moan that rose into a chorus of childish voices. "Find me. Stay with me. Please." I dropped to one knee, hands trembling. "I came," I whispered. "I stayed." As if on cue, the alcove door at my side burst open. Out poured the shadows, closing around me like ink spilling in water. My flashlight went dark. I heard my own ragged breathing, the mock whisper of a child's voice in my ear. "You're mine." And then everything went silent. I woke up, strapped to the captain's interrogation chair, fluorescent lights burning. Detective Lane leaned over me. "Your partner reported the tunnel collapsed," she said. "They couldn't find any trace of you down there." My throat was raw. I tried to speak, but the sound came out as a rough croak. She eyed me like I was a ghost. "You're lucky we pulled you out in time. You were unresponsive, your vitals were shot." I blinked, disoriented. "What about Eleanor?" I rasped. Her face went tight. "Eleanor who?" I shook my head, memory a haze. The alcoves, the tunnel, her face inches from mine. "The girl," I said. "Eleanor Langley, missing child from Maplewood." She frowned. "Langley Drive? That was a different case. The girl was never found." She tapped the file in front of her. "Your report says you found nothing in that house. No footprints, no blood, no alcoves or tunnels. Just an old condemned building." My mouth went dry. I glanced down at my hands, spotless, no grime, no blood. The journal and locket were gone from my belt. My shotgun was missing from its rack. The recorder lay on the floor, dead batteries. "It can't be," I whispered. "Show me the evidence board." She led me down the corridor. I froze when I saw the board. Every old case file for Maplewood Drive had been sealed, marked as "Cold Case, No Evidence." The file for Eleanor Langley was blank. No notes, no photo, no nothing. It was as if the case never existed. I stumbled back. "You wiped it, all of it." She shook her head, alarm in her eyes. "Mark, you haven't slept in 3 days. Your wife says you're hallucinating. You need help." My knees buckled. I caught the wall. The whispers returned, muffled by my uniform. "Find me, stay with me." My blood ran cold. They discharged me the next morning, declared me unfit for duty. I packed up my desk. On my way out, I passed the Evoc range and glimpsed my reflection in the shooting targets. A hollow-eyed specter staring back. I blinked, and the face shifted into a pale little girl before snapping back. I staggered down the hall, clutched my car keys, and drove away. Weeks later, the station's newsfeed posted a story. "Former officer found dead in Maplewood abandoned house. Cause of death undetermined." The headline blurred before my eyes. I shut off the radio. My hands shook on the wheel. I watched the road signs rush by. Maplewood Drive, Maplewood Drive. Then I passed an old farmhouse with a boarded-up attic window. My pulse stopped. I parked. The wheel crunched over gravel. In the rearview mirror, I saw a pale face appear in the window. Thin hair, hollow eyes, smiling. The dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m. I reached for my shotgun, but it wasn't there. Only the cold metal of the door handle. The recorder's red light blinked on the seat. Dead batteries replaced. I opened the door. The night air was thick with expectancy. I stepped onto the porch. The door swung open on its own, creaking wide. Inside, the floors were clear of debris. The alcoves were empty. Only one item remained on a pedestal in the center of the room. My daughter's shoe, scuffed and half buried in dust. I picked it up. A whisper curled in my ear. "You stayed." I pressed the shoe to my chest as the wind slammed the front door shut behind me. And I realized I had never left. Are you listening, officer? I switch on the recorder before I even step out of my cruiser, thumb hovering over the mic button until I'm ready. It's 003 hours, October 22nd, 2023, and I'm parked on Cedar Lane, 2 blocks from the call address. A long vacant farmhouse that's been empty since '98, according to dispatch. The wind's wailing around the roof tiles, and I can hear wood creaking like someone pacing inside. My name is Deputy Mark Rivera, badge number 1225, Smith County Sheriff's Office. I half expect the building to swallow me whole the moment I cross the threshold. Dispatch, this is Unit 5. I've arrived at 421 Cedar Lane. Copy? I tap the mic. Copy, Unit 5. Be advised, neighbors report a child scream 20 minutes ago. No one's been inside since '98, over. I kill the mic and slip out. The metal on my duty belt rattles. Handcuffs, flashlight, radio, taser. I click my flashlight on, angle the beam across the yard. Overgrown grass reaches my shins, and tangled brush wraps around rusted lawn chairs. To my left, an old swing set leans like a skeleton's arm. The windows upstairs are boarded, but the planks are rotten, each gap a black eye staring back. I approach the front porch, my boots sinking into moss-soft wood. A loose floorboard snaps under my weight. My heart pounds. I lean forward, pressing my ear to a narrow gap between rotting boards. Silence. Then a soft scuff, like bare feet sliding across dust. I flip on the recorder. Entering house now. I shove the front door. It yawns open, hinges shrieking. The beam of my flashlight cuts through motes of dust suspended in the stale air. The hall floor is coated in a fine film of grime, thick enough to leave prints, but no recent prints catch my eye. I step in. Porch light swings above, swinging wildly in the draft, casting shifting shadows. To my right, the living room is a ruin. Wallpaper peels like dead skin from the walls, revealing stained plaster. A family portrait hangs askew, glass cracked, the faces slashed by time. I can't make out their features anymore. Grandma, Grandpa, maybe a toddler in the middle, but the frame suggests happier times. Beneath the portrait, the remains of a tattered armchair are scattered across the floor. I shine my light. Cotton stuffing drifts in the air. I move down the hall toward the staircase. Each step groans. I scan walls lined with empty picture frames. Dust drifts in swirling eddies like miniature tornadoes. At the foot of the stairs, I pause. On the third step, I see a scuff, tiny, kid-sized, bare toes. The print is shallow and dusty, but there. No boots, no shoes, just skin, fresh. "Back up," I murmur, reaching for my radio. "Dispatch, Unit 5, I've got a child-sized footprint on the stairs. I'm proceeding carefully." No answer. Radio crackles once, then silence. I grip my flashlight in one hand and my Glock in the other. Up I go, slowly, every board announcing itself with a high-pitched squeal. In the dark, the top landing yawns. I sweep left. An open door leads to what used to be a bedroom. Yellowed curtains hang limply from a busted rod. A small dresser lies on its side, drawers pulled completely out. Their contents, torn clothes, broken toys, spilling onto the floor. I crouch, noticing pink and blue threadbare blanket remnants. Flicking beam across floor, I find small footprints again, this time leading toward the closet. I stand and step forward, knocking on the closet door. "This is Sheriff's office. Come out with your hands where I can see them." My voice echoes. No answer. The hair on my neck prickles. I grip the door frame, drawing a slow breath. With my free hand, I ease it open. The beam catches a rusted toddler's tricycle, its paint chipped, wheels frozen by dust. Behind it, in the deepest corner, my light picks out a small stuffed rabbit, its fur gray and matted. I crouch, pressing my palm to the carpet. Another print, bare heel, so fresh the dust hardly settled. I look up, a faint noise, like breath, or the soft whimper of a child. My pulse spikes. I clear my throat. "You gotta come out, sweetheart. I'm here to help." No reply. I push further in, the closet walls closing tight around me. My boot hits something hard. I kneel, brush away dust, a crumpled piece of paper torn from a notebook. In childish scrawl, "Daddy promised he'd come back." The room grows colder. I can feel it down to my bones. My breath puffs in the beam of my flashlight. I shove the paper into my pocket without reading more. Time to leave. This isn't a search warrant run. It's a welfare check gone sideways. I back out, flashlight swinging ahead, and almost trip over the dresser drawer in the doorway. At the landing's edge, I catch movement, a swift blur vanishing around the corner. Without thinking, I spin and give chase, down the hallway toward the master bedroom door hanging half off its hinges. The floor beneath creaks. The hallway light flickers above, though there's no wiring anymore. Must be moonlight through broken slats. I step into the master bedroom. A canopy bed sits center, sheets shredded, frame rotted. On the far wall, a fireplace stands cold and empty, but the hearth is clean. Unusual. I sweep the flashlight. On the hearth, I see tiny footprints again, leading inside the black mouth of the chimney. My pulse pounds. I shouldn't crawl in there, not without backup, but that whisper, "Daddy promised," echoes in my head. Behind me, the closet door slams. My fingers tighten around the Glock. A faint keening sound rises up. I spin. Nothing. I call for backup again, voice shaking. No response. The radio is dead. I stamp down fear and move toward the closet. Light flickers on the closet handle. I freeze. Then I hear it, clear, a child's sob. I press myself against the door. "Emily?" I whisper, using the name I saw on the ID badge and dispatch notes. "It's Deputy Rivera. Are you okay?" No answer. Just that sob, muffled, desperate. I brace, twist the handle. It gives. Inside, the beam cuts across a small pink nightgown hanging on a nail. Beside it, scrawled on the plaster in charcoal, "I'm right here." My breath stutters. I swallow, sidearm still drawn. My mind races. No charcoal in this house, not since a storm took out the power lines years ago. Someone had to bring it in. Someone had to leave that message. I reach for the nightgown. It's cold, frozen stiff. My glove comes away smudged with grime. I pop the collar and find faint smear of blood on the seam. I gag, pull back. The sob starts again, louder, coming from the far corner behind stacked boxes. I circle around, flashlight illuminating old tax records, a cracked mirror. In that mirror's reflection, I glimpse a tiny figure standing just behind me. And when I turn, no one's there. I pivot on my heel, light darting. The sob stops. The mirror fogs as though something warm exhaled onto it. My heart slams in my ears. I step back, bump into the dresser. A porcelain doll topples off, shattering at my feet. Ivory face cracked, one glass eye missing. I kneel, press the eye in my hand. Tiny, child's eye, ceramic. A floorboard snaps behind me. wood splitting. I whirl, raising my weapon, anticipating an intruder, but the room's empty, then soft giggling echoes like ice cracking. For a moment, I see her. Small, pale dress, hair tangled in knots, eyes hollow pits. Then she's gone. I'm trembling too much to hold the flashlight steady. I ease toward the door, trying to keep calm. But my phone light cuts in, bright and modern. Look, my backup, Deputy Navarro. Relief floods. I step out of the closet and into the hall. Navarro stands there, face pale in the beam. "Rivera, Jesus, man, you all right?" he whispers, voice low so the house doesn't swallow us. "Afraid so." I hold out the doll's eye. He shakes his head, mouth dry. "We heard crying on the scanner?" he asks. "Child sob," I say. "Inside. No sign of her, though." Navarro frowns. 911 got the call about a kid trapped upstairs, but nobody lived here for 25 years. He shines his light down the hallway toward the stairs. I follow. More footprints. Then they stop at the top landing. No prints beyond, no boot marks, nothing after that. Only the old boards, dark stains halfway up, and then blank dust. I swallow. She was here, or something that looks like her. Navarro doesn't reply. We both know the rules. We call for SWAT if a juvenile's involved, but first we secure the scene. No cell service, no radio. We're on our own. I switch off my recorder, sliding it into my vest pocket. The soft click seems loud in this silent house. As I turn to Navarro, a low thump rumbles through the floor, like the house itself is breathing. The chandelier above rattles. The wind outside flickers through shattered panes. I don't know if it's the draft or something else breathing inside these walls. We share a glance. Then he raises his flashlight, taps his comm. "Unit 6 requesting." His radio crackles, then clicks out. Static. We're cut off. Alone in the house with footprints that lead nowhere and a child who shouldn't exist. I draw a deep breath. "Let's check the basement," I say. He nods, and together we step toward the staircase. Every creak a reminder that tonight, the dead might just remember they're not alone. The metal treads on my boots echo as we step toward the narrow wooden staircase leading down. Navarro switches his light to his off hand so he can grip the rail. Each step creaks and groans under our weight, as though protesting that it hasn't felt living flesh in decades. The air grows colder with each tread, heavy with the tang of damp earth and rot. I keep my Glock in my right hand, flashlight in my left, heart hammering against my ribs. Behind me, Navarro's breath puffs in the beam. We reach the bottom landing. The door to the cellar, no more than 2 panels of warped oak, hangs half ajar. I pause, hand on the knob, and feel a vibration through the floorboards, as though something trembles just beneath us. For a heartbeat, I consider retreat, but the thought of Emily, or whatever that thing was, trapped below, drives me forward. I push the door. Its hinges shriek, protesting the crushing years of neglect. The flashlight beam slices into a low-ceilinged chamber lined with shelves that sag under the weight of empty jars, rusted tools, and cobwebbed boxes. The far corner dissolves into smoke-thin darkness. My boots sink slightly in the soft soil floor. Navarro steps in beside me. The door thumps closed behind us, echoing like a gunshot. "Keep your flashlight low," I whisper, voice nearly lost in the chamber's hush. "We'll conserve ours and use ambient light to spot movement." He nods. I sweep the beam across the shelves. On one, I catch a shape. A child's shoe, scuffed and small, its laces undone. I kneel, pick it up. Heavy, like it carries the weight of something broken. I show Navarro. "Found a shoe," I murmur. "Tiny, looks like a kid's size 6. He rubs his neck, teeth clenched. Christ! We move deeper. The walls are lined with old cinder blocks, though someone's painted them a faded yellow at some point, cheerful maybe to mask the darkness. Patches of black mold bloom in the corners. A wooden support beam holds up the floor above, its surface riddled with deep gouges almost like claw marks. I run my flashlight across them, each scar jagged, half-healed with time. A skittering sound at the far end. We freeze. My flashlight swings toward it. In the dim, I sense shapes shifting, dust motes drifting through broken rafters overhead. Then I hear it clearly, the soft tap-tap of something moving against earth. I crouch low, training the beam toward the noise. Navarro crouches too, his light angled at the floor. There, a trail of footprints begins, bare, child-sized, sinking into the dirt. I follow them, silent. They lead again toward that black void in the corner. I shine the light, nothing but a sagging tarpaulin draped over old machinery. I unzip my voice recorder and whisper, Section 2, Basement Approach. Found child shoe, claw-like gouges, footprints leading into tarpaulin. I tug at the tarp. It rips with a satisfying tear. Beneath, a low-slung metal hatch set into the floor. A second sub-basement. A hatch my flashlight beam can't penetrate. I catch Navarro's eye. We either open it, or we call it and get everyone out. The radio crackles violently, then dies, static. My pulse hammers. I draw the Glock tighter. We open it. I grab the hatch handle, cold, slick with grime, and yank. The hatch resists, then pops free. A rancid smell, earthy, musky, like something long buried, rises. Dust billows outward. I shine my light down. A wooden ladder disappears into ink-black gloom. The footprints trail off the edge of the hatch, into the darkness. I whisper, God help us. And I climb. Each rung groans beneath me. I count silently, 10, 20, 30, rungs ending in another narrow landing. My light reveals walls crusted with centuries of damp plaster. Against one wall, a gurney lies collapsed, its wheels rusted shut. Straps dangle like nooses. On the floor, scrawled in old blood, 3 words, Stay with me. The writing angles downward, as though someone wrote it as they fell. A gust of wind or breath whips across the landing. My flashlight flickers. I steady it, spotting another child's shoe, identical to the one we found above, beside the gurney. Next to it, a half-melted birthday candle. I kneel, pick it up. A single drop of wax glistens under my light. I smell it. Sweet, sickly, and taste copper on my tongue. Footsteps echo behind me on the wooden slats above. I whirl. Nothing. I call softly, Navarro? Only my own breath replies. Every instinct screams to bolt, but I'm here now. I shine my light down the corridor, walls lined with heavy tarps, one slightly parted. Behind it, a row of empty chairs, surgical in appearance. The air is colder here, and moisture beads on the tarp, dripping onto cracked tiles. I step forward. Each drip thuds in my eardrum. The corridor ends at a heavy metal door, streaked with rust and old blood. The handle is painted black. Above it, faded letters read Exit, though this isn't an exit to any known map. I reach for my radio, but no signal. My hand shakes. I grip the handle. It turns, but offers resistance, as though something holds it shut on the other side. I give it a firm twist. The door grinds open, revealing a small room lit by a single, naked bulb swinging from the ceiling. The bulb pulses, flickers, casting long, trembling shadows. The walls are covered floor to ceiling with photographs, hundreds of them pinned haphazardly. They're all faded Polaroids, child after child, faces twisted in terror, eyes pleading. Each photo has a date scrawled in the corner. Most are decades old, but some are from months ago. I recognize one, a little blond boy missing from a nearby county case last summer. My gut twists. My flashlight sweeps across the room. In the center, strapped to a chair, sits a figure draped in a thin sheet. Under the sheet, something shifts. The breathing is too gentle to be human. My pulse spikes. "Navarro," I half yell, but only an echo replies. I jerk off the sheet. Beneath, a small mannequin's torso, plastic but with human hair glued in strands. Its eyes are glass, one identical to the doll's eye I found upstairs. Its mouth is carved into a perfect, smiling grin. A single Polaroid is pinned to its chest, a picture of Emily Bennett. Dated October 21st, 2023. Yesterday. My skin crawls. I stumble back, knocking over a stack of photos. They flutter to the ground like dead leaves. The bulb flickers faster, and through the wavering light I see a shadow at the door. Tall, hunched, its head cocked at an impossible angle. My breath comes in sharp gasps. I raise the Glock. A voice, thin as a whisper, drifts from the corner behind me. He left us, too. The bulb snaps off, plunging me into darkness. My flashlight spins out of my hand, clatters across the floor, landing beam down. For a second, I see nothing. Then the beam catches something slithering across the floor. Dozens of footprints, bare, claw-like toes dragging in the dust, leading toward me. I scramble for my Glock, call Navarro's name. Silence. Then behind me, closer than humanly possible, comes the soft scraping of nails on concrete. The door slams shut with a deafening bang. The flashing bulb overhead sputters back to life for a heartbeat, just long enough for me to see, pressed against the far wall, Emily Bennett's face. Pale, lifeless, eyes black holes. Then the light dies again. I pound on the door. "Navarro, get me out!" My voice cracks. Only my hammering fills the void. The footprints creep closer, stopping inches from me. A breath, cold as the grave, brushes my ear. Something whispers into my shoulder. "Stay with me." My vision whirls. I choke back a scream. I have to get out. I have to save her. Or at least myself. I slam my shoulder into the door, body aching. It splinters but holds. I kick at it, heart in my throat, breath ragged. Then, above the din, I hear Navarro's radio crackle faintly through the wood. "Unit 5, are you there?" Respond. I whirl, adrenaline surging. "Navarro, break it down!" The voice pulls me back from the brink of madness. With one final kick the door gives, splinters rain down. Navarro staggers in, shotgun raised, face ashen. He grabs my arm. "We're out," he says, voice raw. I don't argue. I follow him, scrambling up the ladder, abandoning the darkness and its hungry whispers behind. As the hatch slams shut, the corridor goes quiet, too quiet. We emerge into the cellar. The wind outside whistles through cracks overhead. I gasp in the stale air, trying to reclaim my breath. Navarro helps me up the ladder, his hand firm on my shoulder. As we reach the top, I glance once more at the basement hatch, half hidden in shadows. My recorder dangles from my vest, its red light blinking, still running, still recording. I know I should call this in, document every detail, but part of me is frozen at the memory of those photographs, that plastic torso, Emily's face in the flicker of that bulb. Something about this place is wrong, ancient, malevolent. There's a hunger here that won't be sated. Navarro finds me at the front door, helmet in hand. "We got enough for one hell of a report," he says quietly. I nod, too drained to speak. I step out into the night, the wind carrying a distant echo, childish giggles carried off into the forest. As we climb into the cruiser, I catch movement in the yard, a small silhouette in the moonlight, standing just beyond the swing set. I lock the door. The figure tilts its head, watching us. Then it turns and vanishes into the trees. I start the engine. Sirens approach in the distance. Backup finally on its way. I kill the headlights and sit in the dark for a long moment, the recorder still running beside me. My shoulder aches from the struggle. My mind reels with images I'll never unsee. And I wonder, was that Emily Bennett, or something that wore her shape to lure me in? My finger hovers over the record button. I think of what to say next: confession, warning, plea. But the wind shifts, and I hear it, clear as a child calling from the edge of the woods, "Stay with me." The headlights cut through the gathering fog as we pull away from Cedar Lane. Me in the driver's seat, Navarro beside me, both of us silent, except for the whir of the engine and our ragged breaths. Sirens blare behind us, but I kill the lights anyway, pushing the cruiser off the road onto a side trail. The recorder's red light blinks steadily from the dashboard, capturing every tremor in my voice. I switch it on. Section 3, Post-Incident Debrief. My throat feels raw, as if I've spent hours screaming in that house. Navarro leans forward, rubbing his temples. "We're safe," he says, though neither of us feels it. We drive 20 minutes to a quiet stretch of a highway, finally stopping under a lone street lamp in an empty lot. I kill the engine. The sudden silence rattles me worse than any creaking floorboard. Navarro leans back in his seat. "So, you really saw her?" I stare ahead, vision swimming with the image of that pale silhouette on the lawn, the echo of her whisper in my ear. I don't know what I saw. My hand hovers over the recorder. I recorded everything. I dig the device out of my vest pocket and press play. My voice crackles through the speaker, clipped and professional at first. Entering house, then breathless as the closet door opened and we found the chalk message, the doll's eye, the footprints. Then basement, the shoe, the gouges, the sub-basement's hatch, the blood-scrawled warning, the Polaroids, the mannequin torso. Navarro listens in stunned silence, jaw clenched. When it finishes, only static plays. The cold night air leaks in through the cracked window and I shiver. "We can't keep it," I say. "It's evidence, but nobody will believe all of it." I glance at Navarro. "We need to go back tomorrow, during daylight. Bring the full team. SWAT, CSI, everyone." He nods, eyes hollow. "Yeah, boss, we'll set it up." I lean back, closing my eyes against the weight on my chest. After a minute, there's a soft tapping at the passenger side window. I jerk upright. Navarro draws his weapon. In the pale halo of the street lamp, I see nothing. The glass fogged by our breathing, the empty lot beyond. I exhale. God. I push the door open. Navarro follows. Outside, the fog swirls around our ankles. I step around to the front bumper. In the low light on the hood, I see tiny footprints, bare, exactly like those upstairs. They lead off into the darkness toward a stand of pines. Navarro crosses to me, shining his flashlight. He caps it quickly. "Did you see that?" I swallow. "I did." He radios dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Unit 5. We have unexpected developments. Please advise." Static. No answer. He tries again, same result. Then the headlights of the sheriff's SUV appear on the highway, blue and red flashing. Half a dozen patrol cars follow. We wave them in. Inside the command van, the lieutenant, Barker, waits with a CSI tech and a SWAT sergeant. Barker's face goes pale when we say we found fresh child prints. "Are you sure?" he asks. I show him the recorder, but before I can play it, Navarro holds up the tiny shoe and the doll's ceramic eye in evidence bags. Barker stares at them like they're radioactive. "Okay," he says finally. We assemble at Cedar Lane at first light. In the meantime, secure the cruiser and get some rest. You both look like hell. I lean back and close my eyes. Sleep doesn't come. My mind replays the basement, that metal door with its manufactured exit sign, the wall of Polaroids. Images of children whose eyes were crossed out, date after date, culminating in Emily's photo from yesterday. The mannequin strapped to that chair, its glass eyes, my own reflection trapped inside. At 5:47 a.m., my phone buzzes. I fumble for it, no service. But a notification flashes on the lock screen. A voice memo from my recorder, timestamp from 2 minutes ago. I did not record anything while we sat in the cruiser. I thought I'd stopped the device. I press play. First, the engine hums. Then my voice. They're watching. Then a child's faint whisper. You promised. Then, unmistakably, a small giggle, one I did not hear in the car. The file ends with the sound of someone tapping. 6 rapid taps, like a tiny hand drumming on metal. I hit delete, but the file reappears. I try again. It returns. Barker walks by and asks if I'm okay. I nod, eyes fixed on the recorder. Something's off. He raises an eyebrow. Get some sleep, Rivera. I lie down on the cot in the bunk area. Hours later, sunlight slices through the blinds. I wake, bones aching. Navarro is already gone, probably checking on the cruiser evidence. I sit up and reach for the recorder. The memo is gone. Instead, a new file appears. Timestamp 7:02 a.m. I press play, static, a long breath, then the shuffling of small feet, and a child's voice clear in the hiss. Stay with me. Then, footsteps, ascending a metal ladder, wood creaking under weight too heavy for a child. The recording ends abruptly. My skin crawls. I shut the recorder off and tuck it into my pocket, then grab my coffee and walk outside. The lot is empty except for the command van and the deputies milling around. I peel off the evidence bag, unwrap the ceramic eye, and hold it in my palm. It's colder than the dawn air. At 8:15 a.m., we roll out to Cedar Lane with the full team. Uniformed officers, a CSI van, a SWAT truck. As we approach the house, the sun rises higher, and the old boards glow a sickly yellow. I spot the swing set, the rotted porch, the boarded windows. The house looks innocuous in daylight, almost quaint, except for the warped shutters and that single broken pane on the second floor, through which I once saw a pale shape. Barker signals SWAT to stack on the porch. I radio Navarro, who steps up beside me. You ready? He asks. I nod, swallowing down nausea. We breach together. The door swings open on gas-choked hinges. Sunlight spills into the foyer. CSI sets up their lights. SWAT operators fan out. I raise my mic. Mark Rivera, Smith County Sheriff's Office. My voice steadies. You are inside a secure perimeter. If you're in here, show yourself. Silence. We move through the living room. Drapes drawn back, splinters removed. The family portrait is still there, but now someone has scrawled in black paint across the glass the words, "Forget me not." CSI photographs it. I think of Emily's message. Daddy promised. We hit the stairs. Tactical lights pick out the dusty footprints still visible in the morning haze. SWAT follows, weapons raised. At the top, the closet door is gone, ripped clean off. Inside, the pink gown hangs on a nail, the same one. The chalk message is overwritten, "I'm not alone." Downstairs, we clear every room, then return to the basement hatch. SWAT plugs in floodlights. CSI lowers a camera rig into the sub-basement. We watch on a monitor as they reveal the gurney, the bloody writing, "Stay with me," and then, pinned to the far wall, dozens of Polaroids of missing children. Each face crossed out in black marker except one, Emily Bennett. My gut twists. I turn to Navarro, voice low. Why is hers the only one uncrossed? He doesn't answer, just stares at the screen. We back out. SWAT reseals the hatch. We didn't remove the mannequin torso. Too fragile, too grotesque. It stays behind with the evidence technicians. At midday briefing, Barker orders a 48-hour hold on the scene. We'll catalog every photo, every footprint, every scrap of evidence. He looks at me. You did good, Rivera, but rest up. I nod. I want to lie, but I know I can't sleep. Not now. That night in my apartment, I unpack my gear. Glock, badge, recorder. I set the recorder on the coffee table and press play. The file begins with my voice. Section 4. But then a child's laughter cuts it off. I snap it off. On my wall, I've pinned my daughter's last school photo. Smiling. Oblivious to any horror. I step closer. Fingerprints pricking at my neck. I can almost hear those tiny footsteps behind me. I turn the photo around. On the back, in childish hand, someone has scrawled, "Don't forget me." I drop the photo. It hits the floor, glass shards tinkling. My daughter's face stares up at me, unbroken. I pick it up gently. In the reflection of the glass, I see a small girl standing in the hallway behind me. Pale, dress tattered, eyes black as oil. Her head tilts. Then she's gone, but I feel her breath on my neck. I don't know how much longer I can hold on to what's real. I text Barker, I need time off. He replies, you good? I stare at the screen and type, I'm not sure. Outside, the wind rattles the windows. Somewhere, far too close, a child giggles. And I wonder, did I rescue her or did I lead her here? What is she waiting for now?